Grandpa asked you, what should you do as an imperial teacher in the future? I am serving the country and the people, sharing your worries for you. Ruozhi replied. Do you know why my husband's family has been passed down for 100 years? Loyalty. Absolute loyalty. I'll ask you again, what if the man you love is an emperor? Loyal to him. What if he's not? Kill him. As the most powerful woman of the dynasty, Ronghwa's only purpose in this life is to assist the Ming Jun and fulfill her own responsibilities. She knew he would be the emperor she assisted, and she could only be the most capable assistant around the emperor. As for his lover, give up, we are destined to be impossible. The man had no words, just words and phrases. Ronghua, remember, in my life, I will only have you as a woman. Keywords of the novel. Lovers Return without pop-ups, Lovers Return full collection download, Lovers Return latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. The Way to Obtain Talents. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. The Way to Obtain Talents. It was noon, surrounded by strong light, illuminating the walls of the palace and also shining on the backs of the women in the main hall. The old man on the steps stood with his hands behind his back, his shrewd eyes overlooking his weathered face, and his graying hair and temples hidden beneath the crown. Your Majesty, Lingzhou is plagued by floods, large areas of farmland are submerged, and refugees are fleeing to the capital. Your Majesty, a large number of refugees have entered the city, making it difficult to maintain security within the walls. Your Majesty, if the refugees are forcibly expelled from the capital, it will not only exacerbate the problems in other provinces and counties, but also cause public anxiety and criticism from the court. The ministers each held their own opinions, but the little one who was the leader of the courtiers stood calmly without saying a word. Emperor Ming did not immediately speak, but shifted his gaze to Ruozhi and touched his beard before speaking. Do you have any good strategies, master? This move surprised not only the ministers, but even Ruozhi was also startled. The court suddenly fell silent, and if Emperor Ming remembers correctly, the last silence was when he questioned who would send troops to attack the state of Zheng. People who are not good at it have a little more playfulness and exploration in their eyes. Only the people surnamed Fu are silently sweating. Perhaps they also want to see what this childish little girl can say. I believe that with the strength of the capital, it is not a problem to retain some refugees. It is just that Lingzhou is low-lying and has been plagued by floods in recent years. Water conservancy is feasible to solve the root cause of Lingzhou. It was not Ruozhi who spoke up, but Huai Ran, the new top scorer in the imperial examination this year. Ruozhi glanced sideways at Huai Ran standing out, smiled slightly, and was interrupted by another sound as Ruozhi explored the expression of the Ming Emperor. It's easy to say. The people living in Chongping City are all noble families present. If anything goes wrong, I, as the governor of Beijing, cannot bear this responsibility, Lin Rufu retorted. What Lord Lin said is quite true. However, these refugees may only be refugees in Chongping City, but they are also good subjects of our great Song in Lingzhou. In the end, as long as Lingzhou builds water conservancy, there will be no water disasters, and the people have food crops. They will naturally not flee their homeland and travel thousands of miles to their hometowns. Huai Ran replied. The courtiers whispered to each other, who is this young handsome guy? I haven't seen him before. I'm not sure if this person is the top scorer on the new subject list, but now he's serving as the editor of the Hanlin Academy. Dare to play against Mr. Lin like this in the first meeting. It's terrifying for future generations. Although that's the case, water conservancy measures are not something that can be taken overnight. How should these refugees be dealt with? If she had hoped that the top scorer could continue to come up with a solution, Huai Ran's delicate face would have added a touch of urgency. It was unclear whether it was due to the weather, and the large area on his back had already been soaked. Your Majesty, I believe that Chongping City is vast and sparsely populated, with many being the children of officials and producing less. This move can provide assistance to the city, as many of the refugees are farmers. If water conservancy is established, the court can hire them, so they can have both. Ruozhi spoke up. If Lord Lin is really worried, he can request that the patrols of various streets in the city increase their frequency, or the ministers remind their families to be more careful. After speaking, the courtiers under the court had different expressions and were all moved by this Ruozhi. However, Emperor Ming's expression did not seem to change much, and he only thought about Chu for a moment. Let the people go first. Where is the Minister of Water? I am here. The water conservancy in Lingzhou is being carried out, just as Fu Qing said. Yes, with the eunuchs saying, leave the court, and the ministers bustling down, it is obvious that today, due to Ruozhi's advice, the courtiers have some thoughts about the emperor's actions. This is Ruozhi's first true going to court. She is the granddaughter of Empress Dowager Qingyuan, and it can be said that her family is a generation following the founding emperor of Ronghua, who has been passed down for 100 years. But the old imperial teacher was already old, but unfortunately his only son died in battle on the battlefield. Ancestral teachings of Ronghua. A country cannot be without an emperor or a teacher. So the inheritance of the imperial teacher lineage falls on Ruozhi, who has not yet reached her prime. The emperor remembers her young age, and the empress is known as her surrogate mother. Ruozhi also grew up in and out of the palace since childhood, and her natural and free-spirited personality has won the love of people around her. Although not a royal family, she also acts as brothers and sisters with the princes and princesses. The Empress Dowager and the fourth consort are also highly favored, and it can be said that her glory is unparalleled in this great San kingdom. Emperor Ming and everyone knew well that Ruozhi would eventually sit and guard in this court for half her life. The emperor left Ruozhi in the Grand Council Hall, indicating that only the emperor and his ministers should be left. With just one gesture, everyone at the bottom of the stairs held their breath and moved away, afraid of falling behind. That is the majesty of Emperor Ming, who has been in power for decades. When everyone goes down, there is only one ruler and one minister left, one old and one young. The bright eyes of early winter made Ruozhi feel a bit dizzy, and looking at someone who was the same age as her father in power, her heart couldn't help but feel sad. Huar, today it's just you and me, there's no need to be too reserved, said Emperor Ming. Yes, if she had shed the respectful respect that everyone showed to Emperor Ming during his time, she would be replaced by a sense of composure, a demeanor that did not belong to a 12-year-old child. With tears streaming down her transparent eyes, Your Majesty is getting old. Huar feels sorry. If someone else were to say this, they would have given her 10 courage and dared not speak it out, while someone like Ruozhi who looks directly at the emperor and is so straightforward may only be her. Look at your appearance, the ruler of our country, why bother you as a girl to feel sorry? After speaking, Emperor Ming straightened his clothes and walked unsteadily. I am old, but my country needs someone to succeed me. A thought made Ruozhi stop thinking. I want to test the future emperor and master of our great San kingdom. How can I assist Ming Jun and ensure peace both domestically and internationally? If she didn't expect the emperor to ask so bluntly. I am not talented, and I know that I do not have the ability and knowledge to balance internal and external factors. Ruozhi bowed slightly, retracting the emotions that had never happened, revealing the innocence of the youth. Emperor Ming gestured for her to continue. However, I believe that those who can gather the talents of the world and serve our great Song are the best strategy. The way of governing talents has always been a common method used by emperors and celebrities. It's not surprising, let's discuss it again. Emperor Ming quickly waved his hand, then lowered his head and wandered left and right. Ruozhi tugged at the corner of her mouth and took a small step to avoid the sunlight. The meaning of not being a minister. Emperor Ming was taken aback and answered casually, that's the way to use talent. Ruozhi shook her head again. Ming Emperor's footsteps were relatively stable, but Ruozhi knew he had accelerated his wandering pace. Ren Kai's way. But it's not a magic weapon, Ming Emperor pretended to be angry when he saw Ruozhi's expression. Alright, will I ask you or will you test me? Tell me quickly. Ruozhi smiled and quickly straightened her face. No, the way of being a minister is not the way of governing talents, not the way of using talents, nor the way of appointing talents, but the way of selecting talents. Ruozhi continued, managing talent is a powerful strategy. When I was young, I had a good horse. The groom of my family claimed to be the best horse trainer in the world. In order to demonstrate his abilities, he whipped the horse every day, shouted loudly, and within 3 days, he rode on the back of the horse. Just as everyone praised him, the horse suddenly became animalistic, and the trainer fell to the ground and died. What happened later? If she was interrupted by the voice of the attendants outside the door before she could speak, Your Majesty, the 5th prince requests an audience. Upon hearing this, Emperor Ming frowned slightly, but the joy in his eyes could not hide from Ruozhi. Let old 5 come in. Ruozhi saw a slender man slowly approaching from one side, wearing an embroidered pear blossom robe that reflected his handsome face. His seductive peach blossom eyes did not diminish the sharpness of the man's body, but he knelt down on one knee. I have seen my father. Get up now, I have seen the 5th prince before. Ruozhi just bowed slightly and even nodded to indicate. Unexpectedly, Hua is also here. I haven't seen her for many years and have been looking forward to visiting Beijing. Now she is becoming more and more clever, the man said. Sorry to bother the 5th prince, but Hua has always admired him for his filial piety. You have grown up in the palace walls since childhood, why are you so separated after only 2 years without seeing each other, said Emperor Ming. It's getting late, let Ronghua go back first. After saying that, he waved his hand and gestured for Lian Lishi to enter the inner room. Yes, Wei Chen, please leave. However, before Ji left the palace, she saw the young man rushing towards him with eager steps, causing him to lose his composure and his eyes to face each other. Under the warm sunshine, the handsome young man's face left a little sweat stain, frowning slightly, as if he were a flower waiting to be watered. The girl's gaze was tender, and she casually took out her handkerchief, gently wiping it off, as if expressing her daughter's affection in those few moments. If she didn't forget to nod on the man's nose when she dropped her hand, there was just a hint of inexplicable forbearance in her affectionate and contented eyes. Your Majesty didn't ask the 5th prince to leave a message, why did he come with me in such a hurry? Ruozhi turned her head, her tone of concern mixed with a hint of resentment. I just want you to think too hard. I haven't seen you in 2 years, and Jier is still blaming me. The woman didn't respond, just paced and turned her head to the side. I have been filial to my mother and have been guarding the tomb for 2 years. I have been feeling tired both inside and outside. I am worried about my beloved and restless day by day. I have to rely on letters to barely support myself. I never expected to receive a single letter, only a few words. Now I finally hope to come back, but how can I be so distant from you, Mississippi? How can I be safe? Lian Lishi's face was filled with grievances and urgency, and there was no other calm expression in the main hall just now. But the woman still didn't speak, her shrewd eyes fixed on the panicked man, and even the flick of a strand of hair at his temples was under her control. If she looked at the man she hadn't seen for a long time, she seemed to be spoiling and helpless. She couldn't have been without it, longing for the moon and missing people. If it weren't for her only trace of rationality, she might have ridden the imperial tomb 800 times long ago. Now that I'm back, won't I leave? I won't leave again. I just want to accompany the beautiful woman on one side and harmonize with her music and music. How could you say sweet words to scare people? Lian Lishi smiled, half of her anger dissipated. The man gently supported Ruozhi's vertical hair, indulging in stroking the broken hair next to her. A delicate jade hairpin was inserted into the bun, and the woman tentatively touched it, then tugged at the corner of her mouth, wanting to say something, but didn't know how to speak. I know you are not interested in ordinary things, and I also learned by chance that a skilled craftsman from Jiangnan made this jade, stone, and nanmu. If she only felt her old face turn red at this moment, she has been either traveling or seeking advice from her retainers in recent years, so she has little time to pay attention to this matter. It is said that women are the ones who please themselves, but unfortunately, they face the sky without any decorations on their bodies. It's not that Ruozhi doesn't like it, but that she really doesn't have time. I estimate that when you come back today, you wanted to dress up, but didn't want everything to be complicated. Ruozhi said, feeling a bit embarrassed. Her ears turned red, and her cold face added a touch of color. She couldn't help but exclaim. Lian Lishi quickly hugged the woman into her arms, and even 1,000 words turned into strands of soft light. Looking at the delicate face of the young girl, Lian Lishi shed the excitement of seeing her lover and was replaced by the pain that had settled down. She also felt a hint of bitterness in her heart. She had watched Ruozhi grow up, and how could he not know the hardships on the girl's growth path? How could they, who were only growing up in the center of power, be liberated? Jie, you know, I hope you dress not to satisfy a man's desires, but to be like an ordinary woman, just to have a leisurely appearance and be quiet every year. As soon as Lian Lirong entered the gate of the palace, she saw 2 men and women frolicking in the small pavilion next to her. She wanted to see who was sacred and dared to act in public in the palace. After confirmation, she only shouted, "Brother!" The 2 of them fixed their eyes and saw the 6th prince waving towards them. They bowed to each other and even Lirong spoke up, "Why can't this imperial brother wait for a moment, and you're all talking nonsense in this palace?" Ruozhi has also been accustomed to this guy's straightforward language since childhood. Compared to those who speak in a roundabout manner, she still likes this straightforward person. "Why did the wind bring you here?" Lian Lishi felt a little annoyed when interrupted. "The crown prince of the kingdom of Xia is here to choose a bride. My father asked me to come and discuss the matter, but I didn't expect to see the 2 beauties. It's really frustrating. So, I want to choose a good wife, which will definitely make you envious." If she pursed her lips and smiled, she raised her eyebrows and looked at Lian Lirong, who saw her small movements but ignored them. "In just a moment, I saw a woman in Huai walking straight away." As soon as Lian Lirong waved her hand holding a fan, she disappeared without a trace. Why did the 2nd princess leave so urgently? Lian Lishi was a bit puzzled. After all, this royal child is most particular about manners. "Hey, Brother Wu, do you still remember Gu Ronghua, the daughter of the right prime minister whom you saved 2 years ago? Since then, 2nd sister has made friends with her, but perhaps she is also feeling unwell." Lian Lirong just passed by and saw the eunuch waving quickly. After saying that, Ruozhi bid farewell to the 2 and left the palace. In the sedan chair of the returning mansion, a man in black attached himself to Ruozhi's ear and reported, with a fleeting figure that was nowhere to be found. The woman felt lost in thought and rubbed her temples, then collapsed and fell asleep. Miao Qin looked at his master with a tired face and a pale complexion, not even the same charm as before. Now that the 5th prince has returned, and the foreign crown prince has come to join in the fun, I'm afraid this one cannot avoid planning for a while. How long is it until the birthday banquet of the daughter of the Gu family? Ruozhi took a nap, returning to the master, "There's more than a week left. Are you going?" The people of Datsang had a pure national style, and the founding empress advocated not distinguishing between people based on gender. Only by obeying faith can virtuous and filial generations be born. Therefore, women can enter the court as officials, and men can also be placed in the inner courtyard. However, the family rules of these officials and their children are very strict and diverse, not as comfortable as ordinary people. Although Ruozhi is an exception, her days in the capital are few and far between, and she only comes back in just over 3 months, making it difficult to see each other. As for why did Ruozhi want to meet this unknown Gu Nv? Of course Miao Qin was puzzled and opened his mouth, but in the end, he remained silent. By the way, is Liu coming back? Ruozhi's tone was somewhat suggestive. Returning to my lord, King Guangxian has won the battle, and your majesty has already prepared. On the 15th day of this month, we will host a banquet for the ministers and harem, as well as for the Chu prince today. If Xi's gesture interrupts Miao Qing, it indicates that she is aware and the woman keeps her eyes closed throughout the process. Just halfway through the journey, when the turbulence was not there, those clear eyes slowly opened and spoke, "Why stop? Miss Hui, it's the young master of the Li family." The woman understood clearly that Li Qing was the youngest son of the current left Prime Minister Li Linhai, and the Li family was also a 100-year-old clan. Li Linhai was also an elder of 3 dynasties, and was of the same generation as Ruozhi's grandfather. Li Linhai's wife left early, and Li Qing was the wife of Lady Su Xian. Ruozhi lifted the sedan curtain and poked her head out, only to see a man in purple robe, dressed in luxurious attire, and next to him was a delicate white robe. Upon closer inspection, it was the No. 1 scholar Lang, in the main hall. "Brother Li, are you here?" Ruozhi pretended to ask. "Now that you have discussed politics, it's really important for influential people to forget things." Li Qing had been waiting for this person early in the morning. He had intended to ask Ruozhi for some good luck, but he didn't even remember it in his heart. He was really asking for trouble. Ruozhi tugged at the corner of her mouth and quickly folded the fan in her hand to pat her head. "Yo, look at your memory, girl. When the Drunken Immortal Tower opens today, I naturally want to go and praise Brother Li's performance. I will definitely be punished 3 times later. You want to kill me with just 3 cups, why don't you drink a few bowls?" Li Qing pretended to be dissatisfied. Ruozhi said in her heart, "You're such a good kid, you're really a master of revenge. Since that's the case, Miao Qing, do we still have many important matters to attend to in our mansion? Let's go back first," he said as he drove away. Upon seeing this, Li Qing quickly blushed and placed her hands on the delicate window. "Good sister, can't I make a mistake? Just give me a face and I'll punish myself with a pot." "That's what you said, girl. I don't force anyone to do it." Of course, of course." Seeing that the woman had already paced off the carriage, Li Qing didn't hesitate to help her down and hugged the other person's arm. "All right, how old are you still being coquettish? So many people are watching." The woman indulged and felt helpless. "I really can't do anything about you," the attendant beside Huairan said with a gloomy tone. "Li Qing has a rebellious personality and has caused a lot of trouble, which can be a headache for Li Xiang. However, although he seems to be the No. 1 playboy in the capital, he is not afraid of heaven and earth, but he only listens to Ruozhi's words. Seeing him today, he really listens to him everywhere." The position of the imperial master's mansion in this great song is self-evident, and this little imperial master has always refused to treat those official children, only getting close to Li Qing. At first, he was also curious about why his own young master had a relationship with this playboy. It seems that there is still some advantage in climbing up to Li Qing, a foolish young man. Huairan followed the eldest son and daughter of the great Song along this busy street. Even though she was from a family background, she was amazed when she saw the street view of Chongping in the capital today. "Lord Huai is from Xia?" Ruozhi asked. "Miss Hui, my mother is from Xia. Over the years, my father followed her and I grew up in my maternal family. However, at the age of, insert year, both my family and I wanted to get an official position, and I only returned a year ago." No wonder Brother Huai is not very familiar with the hustle and bustle of people. There are no less than hundreds of thousands of people participating in the imperial examination every year. With such a single wooden bridge, you must have put in a lot of effort to block it alone. Li Qing praised. To be honest, since the late emperor, people from all over the world have been allowed to participate in the Datsang imperial examination. Regardless of their background and appearance, Huai came from a merchant family and was not short of money. However, from his parents, it can be seen that in order to truly gain respect from one side, one must pass the imperial examination. Great. Hey, what did that group of people do? I saw a group of people bustling around and grabbing something. A few days later, the daughter of the right prime minister will perform the ritual of gyuri, which may have been prepared by the people in the mansion, Huai Ran blurted out. Li Qing helped the fan, but couldn't help but say, Gu Xiang has been worshipped as the right chancellor of the Great Song for many years. At that time, he will surely have a prosperous family and be a noble in Chongping. Don't flatter me. Ruozhi smiled and said, you look so sour. Let your son, the left prime minister, be domineering and not allow his daughter, the right prime minister, to make a big fuss. Good sister, I really don't like those girls' families. I'm also a girl. What are you saying? Hurry up and leave, it won't be good to delay the time later. The procession was submerged in the bustling city. Drunken Immortal Tower at this moment, the entrance of the shop was already crowded with people. Seeing Li Qing and his group rushing over, this servant worked even harder playing gongs and drums, creating a lively atmosphere. When the time is ripe, the shopkeeper shouts loudly, the auspicious time has arrived. Cut the ribbon. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Trust her. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Trust her. As soon as the voice fell, Li Qing Ruozhi and the other two neatly cut short in the middle of the big red flower, and their voices became louder again. The people next to them also quickly cheered and brought some joy. Li Qing, I don't have many hobbies and only care about the word food. Thanks to your care, I have become a foodie's residence. From now on, I hope everyone can support me. Opening today, big guys are open to eat and drink with peace of mind. Little Empress said, all attendees today are free of charge, she treats. If she rolled her eyes, would she still wonder? Emotion, this kid is waiting for her here. The sun is setting in the western mountains, and the afterglow is peaceful. Outside the city wall after several months of driving, the group of Chuyun Creek finally arrived at the entrance of the city. This is Chongping in Kyoto, which is the busiest city overlooking the entire continent. In the center of a neat queue of several hundred people stood a sedan chair adorned with high-quality redwood, yellow, and emerald. A pair of slender jade-like hands extended from the gap of the sedan curtain. Although delicate, the thickness of the bones showed that these were a pair of men's hands. Holding a folding book lightly in their hands, they were full of dignity with just a The deputy general who had just dismounted from the horse respectfully continued with his hands, and the word yes understood the meaning. Chuyu handed over the clearance document to the city guard. Seeing the soldier's expression change, he waved his hand and Chu Yunxi's team entered the door with great force. The scouts from all around also rushed to their respective places. Xingyang Street today happens to be the first day of junior high school, where various portals and jia merchants gather here. The entire street is filled with lights and candles, bustling with activity. This is the owner of a steamed bun shop enthusiastically shouting, steamed buns, the newly cooked hot steamed buns. You beggar, didn't you give them to you yesterday? You think this is jishitang, go ahead and don't hinder my business. There are performers performing acrobatics and laughing, walking rope on foot. Come, folks, we escaped from Lingzhou. Unfortunately, our parents left only my brother and sister along the way, feeling lonely and helpless. Today, if you have money to support a money market and no money to support a personal market, even if you have pity, there is a way for us too to save lives in this capital. Passers-by expressed sympathy one after another, and soon the plate in their hand was filled with broken silver. Some children on the street squat down to throw beads, while others rely on the clay figurine master to cry for their mother's help. A despicable child, last time your father bought you so many clay figurine toys from the new city, you wasted them all. You still have the face to demand them from me, to see if I won't hit you. Some walk together, humming popular songs. I am a grain of rice from Tsang, and everyone eats it. I am a drop of water from Tsang, converging into a river. I am a person from Tsang, and everyone starts from a family country. Of course, there will also be children who are left alone and bullied, crying silently in the corners of the city wall. The daughter outside the staff member threw a ball at the embroidery tower to invite a bride, saying, "Oh, he's hit." The attic girl felt embarrassed and covered her jade face with a fan, leaving only the noisy people below and the bewildered, prospective husband. What's lively here is the storyteller's endless chatter. The character we're talking about this time is amazing, the storyteller said while clapping the board, blowing his beard and staring in confusion. I saw everyone below facing each other, whispering in unison, which goes without saying. Speaking of the legitimate daughter of the imperial master's mansion, Fu Ronghua. The grandson of Qing Yuan, the imperial master of the three dynasties, who was literate at the age of 2, composed poetry at the age of 3, and fought with the army at the age of 8. She was the number one person in the Great Tsang, and her friend was from temple to begging city, spanning 6 countries and crossing the rivers and lakes. Who knows who doesn't know? Everyone in the audience cheered up one after another. Then the person said, "It's just that her appearance is a bit unsatisfactory. She's a chubby, wide-bodied woman with small eyes and a big cake face, living like a pig goo." After speaking, everyone burst into laughter. The young masters gathered at the first clothing workshop, Xiuquan workshop, to select fabrics and powder that had just been imported from Xia country. What Chu Yunxi heard from the sedan chair was the scene of this journey. His handsome face picked up a hint of solemnity and said, "Is this Chongping? It is truly the number one capital in the world." Meanwhile, Chu Yu, standing beside him, heard the boss claiming to be from the Xia kingdom fabric and watched as the men and women scrambled to raise it. A hint of pride appeared on his face as he said, "Crown Prince, do you think the people of Tsang Kingdom are all scrambling for our fabric?" Chu Yunxi sneered lightly without answering, but on the way, he quickly lifted the curtain and gazed at a corner of the restaurant for a moment. "How much longer is there?" "It's not far, the post station is right ahead. Could you please be patient, master?" The handsome and clear face of the man showed a hint of impatience, and as the crown prince of Xia, he personally came to Tsanggua, covering a long journey of thousands of miles. The crown prince of Xia is about to be crowned. According to the ancestral tradition, the crown prince needs to marry the daughter of Tsang as the legitimate wife. As for the reason, it can be traced back to the Great War between the two countries 100 years ago. It goes without saying that this person in the sedan chair also carries the bloodline of most of the Tsang kingdom. At first, he naturally rejected it, but if that person was her, it would be a different story. If she and Li Qing were sitting in the most expensive elegant room of the drunken immortal tower in the bustling area of the street, after drinking for a while, they would see that person was already talking nonsense and completely drunk. Li Xiangren, in his old age, naturally becomes more pampered than ordinary clan children. However, if you also get along with him, you will know that he is not the one who relies on his own power, Ruozhi said. That's natural, Brother Li is so carefree that Huai admires him. How did Lord Huai get to know him? Brother Xiaoguan, he is a Buddhist monk in the Prime Minister Li's mansion. He has always been associated with Brother Li since he came and went. If she nodded, she would no longer ask questions. I know he doesn't like me. In terms of talent and character, I am the last among these children. I have embarrassed him, unlike Big Brother who always brings him glory. Li Qing suddenly stood up from the table. Looking at Li Qingshuan's flushed face, if she clumsily picked up a glass of wine. Don't talk nonsense, your father is also doing it for your own good. From childhood to adulthood, my elder brother always had whatever he wanted. The old man either scolded me or scolded me. The government and the public all called me a rascal. You say, do you think I'm really useless? Li Qing couldn't help but feel reluctant. Do you know why I am friendly with you? Ruozhi asked in reverse. Why, of course. Before he could finish speaking, Li Qing's whole face was pressed on the food and drink, unconscious. Oh, his life is not very easy either. Ruozhi waved the servant beside her, hurry up and help me back, so I can take good care of you. Yes. After the person left, only the two of them, one red and one white, remained in this elegant room. Huairan felt embarrassed and spoke up, today in the main hall, thank you very much, little emperor, for coming forward to save us. Lord Huai, it's you who helped me out, but it's rare to have someone who shares my opinion. Huai is inexperienced, it's just his first time going to court. He's just nervous and talking nonsense. Lord Huai, don't be humble. As for Lin Lao, he is also in his position, don't forget. Huai understands. If we talk about why Lin Rufu didn't let go of his words, it's not that he really didn't empathize with the people. It's also because the previous Jingzhao Yin was dismissed. At that time, it was also a time of famine, refugees entering the city, and public security in the city was chaotic. The daughter of the right prime minister, Gu Ronghua, was kidnapped by bandits and almost turned into a tragedy. As a warning from the past, Lin Rufu also had to guard against it. The two of them left Li Qing as a mediator, feeling uneasy and just drinking. If she knew she had to leave first, she would say goodbye. Palace main hall. The man on the dragon chair took off his dragon robe and exuded a scattered aura, devoid of the grandeur and martial arts of the day. He was clearly an elderly man in critical condition. Lian Lishi looked at the brave and powerful emperor father in his memory, so openly aged that he felt an inexplicable emotion in his heart. Sheer, you will have to crown yourself in 2 years. I will do a big job and personally crown you. Emperor Ming's words were full of his father's kindness, but as an emperor, how could he be a qualified father? Thank you, father. My courtiers are also looking forward to it, but father must take care of the dragon's body. At that time, you will also preside over my wedding with Hua, and... Bold. Emperor Ming urgently shattered Lian Lishi's beautiful fantasies, as the sound was too loud and the old man gasped heavily. After a long time, he breathed smoothly and said, remember, don't mention this matter again in the future. Emperor Ming spoke sternly. Lian Lishi had a momentary daze. He didn't understand why his father was angry, and besides, wasn't the matter between him and Ruozhi a consensus among everyone? Father, I don't know why you object so much. It's just that Sheer has sworn in this life not to marry anyone other than Hua. Emperor Ming gasped again, get out. Get out of here. Lian Lishi was somewhat unexpected, but more determined. The Ming Emperor's personal attendant, Prince Gonggang, quickly patted the Ming Emperor's body and gave Lian Lishi a glance. The man kneeling on the ground bowed heavily before flying away. How could he just be like this? After speaking, the emperor sat slumped on the dragon chair, murmuring softly. As the crowd dispersed, the old man helped the wrench on the dragon chair, turned it around, and the entrance to the steps was revealed. Emperor Ming struggled to walk, without any gold or jewelry inside, and only portraits of successive emperors of the Great Song Kingdom were on the dim walls. Emperor Ming walked to the center of the portrait group and the founding emperor. Emperor Shi. The man lit an incense by the incense burner, the ancestors of Datsang, the 14th emperor of the Tsang Kingdom, and their descendants, Lian Ming, thanked their ancestors for their care, making our Datsang the most powerful country. Now, the people are in peace, the army is strong, and the court is clean. However, our descendants cannot seek blessings for our people. We earnestly request all previous kings to bless us with great prosperity, eternal prosperity, and national peace and security. Today's Emperor Ming was somewhat urgent, and even lost some sense of propriety. It was not too obvious to be alone with Ruozhi, this child. I wish I had been in power for 30.2 years, and I dare not be called the one emperor for eternity, but at least I am a wise ruler who is neither unconscious nor mediocre. For this young adult with a flushed face and still full of childishness, He wanted to explore whether such a young girl who had not yet arrived was really as he had hoped for, or perhaps he was also curious about whether the empress teachers of the great Sun Kingdom were all legendary like fate. The Ming Emperor did not know that all he had to do and could do was believe it. Run. She. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Family Gathering. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Family Gathering. Emperor's Mansion. Ruozhi, who had woken up most of the time while walking on the road, felt a big headache at the thought of seeing a young man in the backyard soon. Master, you said you usually look so majestic, fearless of heaven and earth. Now that you only see everyone in the inner courtyard, you look like this. Miao Qin was a servant by Ruozhi's side since childhood, not much older than her. He, who am I, your master? I haven't seen any battles before, how could I be afraid of a few ignorant women in the deep courtyard at home? It's ridiculous. Miao Qin, standing beside her, couldn't help but laugh when she saw her master's self-encouragement despite being very scared. Yes, my master is the most imposing. Qing'an Pavilion. An old woman dressed in luxurious attire with a bulky figure sat on top. Although she was old and had white hair all over her head, she looked full of vitality. She is Wang Chuanxia, the sister-in-law of her husband Qing Yuan, who is also Ruozhi's. Let's just consider her grandmother. This girl Ji is getting bigger and bigger, she can't even invite my grandmother anymore. The old lady spoke with a sad expression on her face, as if she had been angry. Madam, if the eldest daughter-in-law says something unpleasant, if you treat her as a granddaughter, she may not necessarily consider you, said Li Xiaoxiao. That is to say, she is the legitimate daughter and grandson, and at best, we are also a collateral branch of her husband's surname, said her eldest son, Fu Langyue. Old lady, don't worry too much. Miss Ji must have been delayed by something, said the second son, Fu Langxian. Yes, mother, don't worry too much. Maybe it will be here in a while, said Li Jingjing, the third daughter-in-law. Dad, don't you forget. Did you call your eldest sister today? What's the matter? Fu Mingfeng looked at his father and spoke up. There's no place for you to speak. Li Xiaoxiao scolded his own son. If she had just entered the inner courtyard and heard the chatter of everyone inside, only the servant would say a word, Miss, here you are. The people inside only put on a peaceful demeanor, if she had met her grandmother and all the uncles and aunts. Everyone nodded in response, and the old lady wrinkled her eyes with a kind smile. She quickly gestured to sit down and pointed to the empty space left in front of her. Then he bent down again, facing Ruozhi. Miss Ji, I heard you discussed politics today. Returning to my grandmother, just casually speaking. Ruozhi stopped drinking tea in her hand and said slightly. Hey, Miss Ji, don't be humble. Outsiders don't know about your talent, but I don't know about grandma yet. The old lady stretched her neck and gestured to the person below. Francois waved his hand and said. That's right, now that you're in politics, I still need you to support me more in the future, said Wanfu Langyue with a shy smile. Look, isn't it? I grew up watching Miss Ji, and now I am also an adult who can control the world, Li Xiaoxiao agreed. Auntie, I have a good memory. My older sister is only over 10 years old this year, how could she become an adult? Fu Minka sneered. Hey! You child! Li Xiaoxiao glared fiercely at Wang Keiling and said. Second wife, remember that Kuer is not young anymore. It's time to find a warm room maid to serve her. She pushed Chui'er over beside her. Don't mention it, this girl looks pretty. Second wife, take a look. The old lady looked at her. Chui'er was trained by her sister-in-law, so naturally she is excellent. Although Wang Keiling harbored resentment towards Li Xiaoxiao's dog and mouse, he still responded with a smile. After all, the Wang family is not as powerful as the Li family nowadays. Normally, Li Xiaoxiao relies on himself as the younger sister of the prime minister to support their family. Now that the older sister is worshipped as the central palace, he even wants to get involved with his son's warm bed maid. My greenhouse maid doesn't need you to worry. Fu Minka stood up with some excitement. How did you talk to your elders, child? Wang Keilang was afraid that others would say something first. If she raised her eyebrows, helplessly, this sister-in-law's struggle was just these two older brothers. How about this? The Hongha model in my room is also charming. Would it be good if I choose a day tomorrow to accompany Chuyer girl to serve my second brother? Fu Minka looked at Ruozhi in a daze. Just as he was about to say something, he saw Fu Mingfeng across from him with a wink and had no choice but to sit down. Okay, thank you for taking the trouble, big sister. What bother you? I'm just the two of you brothers who naturally want to make arrangements. Ruozhi's eyes flashed with an imperceptible sadness. It's just that in the future, not only the two brothers, but also our sisters and sisters will have to rely on Ji Maiden as a matchmaker, Li Xiaoxiao intervened and said. If she only smiled and didn't respond, Fu Lanlu poked his neck when he saw that no one intervened. Jier, you see that you are so brilliant today. I believe your majesty and the ministers must. You see that I have also been a servant for a long time. Yeah, Jier, your second uncle has been in court for over a decade, just a counselor. Ruozhi had not yet spoken, but once again picked up the tea set on the table and sipped it. Everyone could see Ruozhi's attitude by now. These three families seem to have agreed, as if they don't give any testimony today, I'm afraid Ruozhi won't be able to leave the gate of Qinyan Pavilion. Suddenly, Ruozhi lifted her head and glanced up. The old lady just sat there without answering, and her aunt and children just pretended to be okay, but they all looked at her. She put down her tea set, wiped the corner of her mouth with a handkerchief, and spoke leisurely. So. Just as the three brothers wanted to hear Ruozhi's promise, there was another loud sound outside the door. Old man. Sir. Here. If she looked over, a hint of relief appeared on her tight eyebrows. With the view in the middle of the night, an old man living on a cane struggled to enter. Ruozhi quickly stood up to help him. It's so late, what are you doing here? Ruozhi's tone was complex and indescribable. If I don't come, these people won't strip my lovely grandchild alive. The old man joked with an elder-like kindness, and he was Qin Yuan, the grandfather of Ruozhi. My second younger brother is here. Look at what you're saying, isn't Miss Ji also my old lady's grandson? Obviously, Wang Chuanxia couldn't sit still when Fu Qingyuan arrived, so she sent someone to place a chair on the side. Fu Qingyuan sat at the main seat and scanned the crowd. His gaze must have been sharp, and the crowd looked a bit hairy for a long time. Are you going to force my grandson to death? Obviously, everyone was wearing such a big hat and was a bit disorganized. It's been so long now, what's the point of making such a fuss? Jier has just attended the meeting, and you are so blatant. If one day she really becomes an official in the court, you. Cough cough. You don't have the ability to bully the younger generation, but. Cough cough cough. If she saw this, she quickly helped Fu Qingyuan's back. It's okay, Grandpa. Old man, we are just a family gathering. Why are you so angry? Li Xiaoxiao said. Why, you don't take me seriously as an old man. Since it's a family gathering, how can I know? The old lady must have heard something when she saw Fu Qingyuan coming like this, and quickly said that this matter had nothing to do with me. I'm also tired. At this moment, I still called Miss Ji, but my sons and daughters-in-law are making a fuss. As a mother, I shouldn't be too bad. Li Xiaoxiao rolled his eyes when he heard the old lady so indifferent. Sister-in-law, you're already quite old, so it's better not to get involved in some things. Today, I'll put it aside. This is my husband's granddaughter from Qingyuan, the only relative. From now on, if you continue to be so reckless and force my grandson, don't blame me for being merciless. She broke the tea set on the side as she spoke. Fu Qingyuan's face was expressionless and full of energy. Everyone knew the weight of the old man's words, so there might not be any family gatherings in the future. After all, that aura was the result of Fu Qingyuan's decades of training in the court and on the battlefield. These people had never seen this battle before. "Girl, let's go." After speaking, Fu Qingyuan left with Ruozhi. If she didn't respond, she just lowered her head and walked out of the courtyard, helping to put away the tears that were about to overflow from her eyes, leaving everyone feeling a sigh. Looking at the boundless sky. The crowd left behind looked at the back of the grandfather and grandson who had left. Where could they still see the smiling face and carrying it just now? All right, this time it's over. The matter hasn't been completed, and both the grandfather and grandson are not welcomed anymore. Fu Lang sat lazily on the ground. I said this girl looks kind to everyone, but in fact, she doesn't take us uncles and aunts seriously at all. She even invited the old man to scare anyone. Li Xiaoxiao complained again. Yeah, this husband's family will be his husband Ruozhi's alone in the future. Fu Langyue. Why? Aren't we husband's family? Are the children here not leaving the blood of the imperial master's mansion? Li Xiaoxiao pointed to the children of each family, indicating that this matter will not be abandoned. All right, mother, please don't say a few words. If outsiders hear this, they won't be able to watch the jokes of our imperial master's mansion. Fu Mingfeng couldn't bear to listen anymore. Look at how you look, you're not even as good as a child. It's just that Miss Ji is not here, chewing her tongue behind her back, and not being obedient when facing you. As the third brother said, you are the only good person who speaks for your niece. We have all become bad people. Aren't you hoping to get promoted to a higher position, or what would our whole family be doing here? Li Xiaoxiao said angrily. That's right, what kind of white radish are you putting in front of us? Fu Langyue helped. Why, when it comes to the third younger brother's heart, he entered the court a few years earlier than your elder brother, and now he is still a fourth-rank attendant. Even the old lady can't afford to lose face like this, bah. You. Shrew. Fu Longlu was so angry that he couldn't speak. Everyone in this family knew this was his sore spot. Now that this woman blurted it out in front of everyone, how could he establish himself in the mansion? Who is a shrew? That's you. As they were fighting together, Fu Mingfeng and Fu Minka on the side quickly pulled them apart. Alright, stop making noise. So, they're all children of prestigious families, what do they look like? The old lady looked at the trend of these families taking action and angrily knocked the ground with her cane. After all, she is someone who has lived for decades more. Wang Chuanxia thought to herself that she is half buried in a coffin, so that this old bone can provide more support. Unexpectedly, they are all a group of unworthy people. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Sit down. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Sit down. Evergreen Pavilion. I saw the woman lying on the rocking chair, listening to Miao Qin tell the story of this great play. Done. Done. I saw the old lady say several roll and roll before everyone dispersed. Let them go. Thanks to Grandpa this time, our family should be able to calm down for a while now. Qing'er is a bit curious. If the old man doesn't come today, what should the master do? What can we do? Let's just waste it until dawn. After finishing speaking, he took off his shoes and collapsed on the bed. He carefully took off the magnolia hairpin and placed it, with the corner of his mouth inadvertently raised. Miao Qin went down. Ruozhi scratched her hair and pretended to untie her clothes. Suddenly, another figure appeared in the calm room. The man sat on the windowsill and interrupted Ruozhi's movements, teasing her hair and jokingly saying, "You're really not shy. If you knew there was still a big man in the room, you had to undress. Brother Yunshi, come uninvited, I thought." Chu Yunxi looked at the woman's pretentious appearance with some helplessness. She is accustomed to such an attitude. But the indulgence in his eyes was also undisguised. You said I finally came all the way here, but you didn't even say to go out and greet me. The man lamented. My good brother, I always prepared a banquet to entertain you, but today. Why did my lover return today and leave his old friend behind in the clouds? If she shook her head, Chu Yunxi just stood by the window and didn't go any further. The two of them just chatted a few words before the man left. If she did feel a bit tired after this day, she quickly fell asleep. Sanjiaju Fu Qingyuan looked at his granddaughter silently, feeling an indescribable pain in his heart. The old butler beside him comforted and said, Master, rest early. Miss just reminded me repeatedly, take good care of yourself, anything is better than that. Hey, this child has never seen his mother since he was born. He has been under such great honor since childhood, and over the years, I have become more and more destitute due to Su'er's situation. It's hard for me to find a way to protect that child at such a young age. Now that I am an old bone, I can still help a little. If it's in the future. What should I do if she is left alone? After speaking, Fu Qingyuan was already crying uncontrollably. If his Su'er were still there, he could have protected Ruozhi very well. In the corner as soon as Fu Mingfeng left the yard, he stopped Fu Minka and helped him by the shoulder. Today, congratulations brother, you have brought back the beautiful woman. Big brother, don't tease me, but why is big sister doing this? This is the eldest sister's compromise strategy. Even I know about you and Honger, not to mention that Jime is the master of Honger. It is estimated that she has long wanted to find time to help you too, but she didn't expect. I didn't expect my mother to get involved first, so she betrothed both of them to you, and no one else could find fault with it. Big brother is thoughtful, but little brother feels ashamed. Just now, he had some resentment towards his big sister. After speaking, the two of them looked at each other and smiled, showing some tacit understanding, without the need for words. When Lian Lishi came out of the main hall, it was already late at night. Looking at the boundless sky, he often breathed a sigh of relief. After 2 years, I finally came back. Thinking of the lovely person in my heart, a warm feeling couldn't help but arise. As I walked outside the palace, there was already a carriage waiting. In the carriage, returning to my lord, the soldiers of King Guangxian have won. Soon, our troops will return to court. Our people have already been arranged. Wuxi reported. The man just let out a gentle as if he didn't care, but a hint of ferocity flashed in his eyes. In just an instant, he arrived at his mansion in no time. The royal family has regulations that all princes and princesses over the age of 14 must be removed from the palace and establish their own homes. However, among all the princes, only the eldest prince, Prince Ruoping, and the second prince, Prince Guangxian, have been granted the title of prince. Therefore, this mansion has not yet been inscribed with a plaque. However, in the past 2 years, even Lishi has taken care of many family members in attendance outside, and they have now been arranged to join. The man got off the carriage and walked straight towards the mansion. As soon as he stepped into the gate, he thought deeply and turned his head, saying, You haven't come back after following me for so long, why don't you go home and spend more time with the second elder? Although Bo Shi was a servant of Lian Lishi, he came from an excellent background. He was once the legitimate son of a small country in the southeast. Later, Emperor Ming led troops to punish Yu State, and the small country was caught in the middle and overwhelmed, so he surrendered to Tsang State. In the military camp, Emperor Ming originally planned to exile the Boshi family, but Xiao Lian Lishi and Xiao Bo Shi had a close relationship, which allowed them to be imprisoned in Beijing. Thank you, Lord. Finally, a faint smile appeared on Bushi's cold face and he walked away quickly. Inside the hall Lian Lishi returned to the inner room, and the man closed his eyes tightly, dragged his tired body, opened his arms, and waited to undress. A maid with a superior appearance but dressed in servant attire cautiously moved her steps. "Why are you today, Pinger?" "Your Highness, Sister Ping's father is critically ill. I reported it to Grandma this morning." The servant's voice trembled. Lian Lishi didn't have much reaction, just, "Oh," and gestured for the servant to come over quickly. The woman first cautiously probed and touched Lian Lishi's hem, but saw no response. She tentatively untied his belt, but the person just glanced down and remained silent. Linger might have misunderstood, so she boldly wrapped her waist around her waist. The man frowned and became a bit angry. Before he could scold, his delicate hands began to carefree and touch him. A somersault, before the spirit could react, the whole person had already spun around and was lying on the ground, powerless. "Get lost." Lian Lishi was really angry this time and quickly called on the nanny to lift the dying person out. The nanny, who was scolded by the prince, left the dormitory and sat on the ground. In the middle of the night, there was such a commotion that the people in the mansion were already talking and panicking to the extreme. "I have long heard that the fifth prince is cold and never gets close to others. Only Pinger, who was given by the empress, has been serving him closely since childhood." The mother also looked at this child very cleverly, so she made her stand up. Now that something has happened, the mother can only be grateful that she is a close attendant next to the empress. Even Lishi watched her serve her mother for many years, which is why she left this old slave alive. Later, Ruozhi asked about this matter, and according to Lian Lishi's recollection, she didn't know where this woman came from. She had already shed the fragrance of acacia on her body, and the woman was carrying a dagger, with ulterior motives. Fortunately, although she was tired, she still kept some clarity, otherwise according to the old man, if the female assassin can walk into the inner room in a dignified manner, it is still because there is no female master in charge at home. His Highness is always outside, and his family is not good at it. The next day if she was awakened early in the morning by the sound outside, the alcohol had just subsided and she seemed impatient, stretching lazily. "Miao Qing, what noise is bothering me, girl? I'm growing up." Miao Qinggang instructed his servants to hear the voice of his own master and quickly ran over to report, "Master, I told them to keep their voices down a long time ago, it's just that there are too many of these things." "Why don't I remember asking you to buy something?" Ruozhi asked in confusion. "Oh no, it's a gift from the nobles and ministers in the city." "Me? What kind of happy event do I have? Is it because we can't celebrate our wedding with Qing'er?" Ruozhi sneered. "You feel like a mirror in your heart. I woke up in the second shift, busy with everything inside and outside. You don't mind if you don't take it seriously. You tease me early in the morning," said Guiyang. Ruozhi saw that the real person was a bit angry, so she quickly changed her tone and glanced at the pile of rare jewelry on the side. She saw a delicate purple box in the middle of those bottles and jars. Ruozhi was curious and tentatively opened it. "Oh. What a big night pearl, I don't know which little one it is, always asking me for that bright thing." Miao Qing remained unmoved, and if she made a gesture, she would throw it out, not forgetting her tone. "Since I don't like it, I'll just throw it away." With a loud bang, the little Miao Qing quickly rushed over and said, "What are you doing?" "I want it." Ruozhi smiled and said regretfully, "So what should we do?" "Qing'er, why didn't you tell me earlier? I've already thrown it away." If she had intended to tease her, she wouldn't have thought that Miao Qing would burst into tears. Her handsome little face was covered in tears, which was truly heartbreaking. "Good brother, where are you here? I didn't throw it away. If Qing'er still wants it, then Curry will let you take it. Don't cry, your little face won't look good if you cry. I'll take you for a spring outing another day. Aren't you always busy?" This Ruozhi is deceiving and coaxing, and finally managed to intimidate Master Miao. Another great Buddha has arrived. Miss Hui, the fifth prince has arrived and is already in the front hall. "Okay, Please invite someone in when I change clothes and wash up. Ruozhi saw through the curtain that Lian Lishi was dressed in a red robe today, handsome and well-behaved. Obviously, she was not affected by last night's incident, and her heart was clear. When Ruozhi and others looked inside again, their eyes lit up and they confirmed several times, only to see a large snowflake lying inside the box. Who gave this pile to? Ruozhi concealed her joy and seemed to pick it up unintentionally. Ruozhi and Lian Lishi listened. Master, this Tianshan snow lotus was sent by Wang Ernai, Miao Qing said. I know you are in urgent need of this medicinal herb recently. I heard it cost a lot of money to get it from your mother's Wang family. Speaking of the Wang family, the eldest prince, Prince Ping, Lian Lifeng, and the fifth prince, Lian Lishi, were both descendants of the former Empress Wang. Wang married the emperor for 30 years, but unexpectedly, a few years ago, he suddenly fell ill and passed away. However, Prince Ruiping was deeply saddened by his longing for his deceased mother, and fled into an empty house. The prince was also seriously ill. After the change of ownership of the central palace, he resigned from his position and returned home. Now, the court is only divided between Gu and Li. Your Highness, this aunt also has intentions. Second brother is kind-hearted and eager to learn. This is the letter from Nangong Academy. If you go back, just say that Jia knows Aunt Heir's intentions and ask her to relax. Yes, Miao Qing thought that Nangong Academy would be the top academic institution in the mainland, even the Imperial Academy in the capital was not enough. The master gave this only spot to the second young master, indicating that there was already an arrangement. Are you friendly with Mr. Nangong? Lian Lishi asked on the side. Coincidentally, since you left the capital, I have rarely returned. On the way to the country of Yang, I happened to encounter a wine-tasting and poetry gathering where literati and literati had some fetish. The old man from Nangong, who was obsessed with drinking, took a liking to the 1,000 drops of drunkenness I received in the country of Xia. In order to beg for wine, he honored me as a guest of the academy and kept me for a few days. He wanted to have a long and lively discussion with the disciples in the academy, so I could live happily. Looking into the bright eyes of the woman, she couldn't stop talking. Even Lishi's emotions were complex, and she hadn't seen each other for only 2 years. She had grown so fast, only to be interrupted by another thought. No problem, Miss, Your Highness. The old butler hurriedly rushed over. Don't worry, butler. What's up? Master, he's sick. Take me there quickly. On the way the crowd hurriedly rushed, and Ruozhi couldn't understand. What's going on? Grandpa was still fine yesterday, how could such a change happen? After the incident yesterday, the old man was very worried and didn't sleep all night. He insisted on going out to take a horse walk this morning. It rained lightly last night, and the steps were slippery. One mistake made him say, "Hey. Why not stop it?" The young one stopped me, but if I didn't, I wouldn't have thought about it. But don't worry, Mississippi. I have arrived at Shiyuan to invite Mr. Mo. Who is Mr. Mo? Lian Lishi's eyes were dim and unclear. Your Highness, Mr. Mo is the legitimate son of a renowned medical family in Jiangbei, with superb medical skills. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Sole legitimate relative. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Sole legitimate relative. The main hall, see the Crown Prince of Xuanxia. The courtiers were discussing one after another. I don't know whose girl is so unlucky that the Crown Prince of Xia chose her. Who knows, let fate take its course. Yunshi has seen His Majesty the Great Song Emperor, and your Majesty is blessed. Chu Yunshi was dressed neatly and elegantly, with no trace of cynicism. Although he had a bit of pride, he was ultimately the crown prince of a country, and it was impeccable. Emperor Ming had long heard of the grand and mighty group of people who had just been granted the crown prince by the state of Xia. Speaking of which, Chu Yunshi was still the legitimate nephew of Emperor Ming. Princess Lu Jingchang, the sister of Emperor Ming, fell in love with the current emperor of Xia at first sight. At that time, it was a sensation and many good stories were spread. "Get up quickly, the traffic has been tiring all the way, is it okay?" Emperor Ming asked kindly. "Returning to your majesty, it's not a problem. Although the journey is difficult, if I find a good person this time, it won't waste me seeking a wife for thousands of miles." This was a comfortable statement, but how could the courtiers spare the teasing? "Please rest assured, Crown Prince. Apart from anything else, these outstanding women are all outstanding, so I'm afraid the Crown Prince will be too picky," a minister said, and the courtiers burst into laughter, causing a commotion in the room. "The Crown Prince of Xia Kingdom doesn't need to worry. You are His Majesty's biological nephew, so naturally this marriage will be particularly concerning. However, I don't know which family of women you are interested in." At this moment, Emperor Ming also spoke up. "Shir, you don't need to be polite. Whether it's the princess and princess in the palace or the daughter of a minister, if you only speak up, I will do it for you." Upon hearing this, the man was seen holding his chest slightly, and people couldn't see his expression. Chu Yunshi tugged at the intriguing corner of his mouth for a long time. "Your Majesty, take this seriously. You have no joking words." Emperor Ming squinted his eyes. "I want the legitimate daughter of the imperial master's mansion, husband, Ronghua." In just 3 words, the noisy hall fell silent once again due to this person's name. Emperor Ming looked at the men below, and no one in the world knew that the imperial teacher was a symbol of power in the Great Song. As a defeated prince, he wanted the first powerful woman in the Great Song. This was not a provocation, so what was the meaning? The crown prince has just arrived, and he is not aware of it. The imperial teacher's lineage never reconciles, even the crown prince of Datsang is out of reach. Moreover, the young imperial teacher is only over 10 years old this year, and his age is not in line with etiquette and law. Yeah. This imperial teacher is my imperial teacher from Datsang. In the future, he will sit in the court and bring his ministers and wise rulers. How can he marry into another country at will? Yes, the crown prince should be replaced. The courtiers strongly opposed. Facing the obstruction of his courtiers, Chu Yunshi didn't even give a glance, just stared straight at the old man in the yellow robe on the steps, which was thought-provoking. "What does your Majesty think?" As the minister said, Shir also saw it. "It's not that I don't allow it, but that the laws and regulations of Datsang are here. However, since you have just arrived, getting married is a big deal. Don't be hasty. This time, you can stay longer and get along better. It's great. Listen to your Majesty's words." Sanjiaju, the fragrance of medicine filled the air indoors, and everyone's expressions were solemn. When Ruozhi and the others arrived, they only saw Fu Langxian and his family waiting by the side. "Hua is here, and His Highness is also here. What should we do?" Wang Keilang stopped crying and bowed to Lian Lishi. "Auntie, don't worry. The doctor will come soon." Everyone breathed a sigh of relief when they heard the commotion in the front hall. Unexpectedly, they didn't see anyone, so they heard their voice first. They only heard a sharp, woo-woo sound from a woman. Not long after, a person dressed in plain color with a pure white face, regardless of the crowd, ran quickly to the bed. "Old man, what's going on? My niece and daughter-in-law are unfilial. Woo-woo." After speaking, I didn't forget to wipe the corners of my eyes with a handkerchief. Miao Qin rolled his white eyes over. If it weren't so exaggerated, there would have been another one. This is really a pair. Li Xiaoxiao's crying did not stop here, and a rough figure in black ran in again. The same posture said, "Uncle, what's wrong with you?" "I'm Yuer." If she got a headache from the argument between the couple, she quickly gestured to her husband Mingfeng, "Dad, Mom, please be calm and don't be impatient. Grandpa just fell, let's wait for the doctor to see." After a while, a man in white rushed in, checked his pulse, and quickly applied medicine. He then took out a silver needle from the medicine box and stabbed the old man a few times before retracting his hand. How about it? Ronghua, don't worry. I have injected the old gentleman and he will wake up after half a minute's rest. However, Ruozhi widened her eyes and Mou spoke. Just the old man, who is already old and worried, may not be able to endure next winter, everyone exclaimed. If she couldn't make it in time, she would have stumbled. If it weren't for Lian Lishi's support, she would have already collapsed on the ground. Li Xiaoxiao burst into tears again, and Ruozhi forced herself to calm down. Crying and crying, pretending to be like this all day to show anyone. After finishing speaking, before seeing everyone, Lian Lishi helped her body and left. Chu Yunxi left the palace, and Chu Yu couldn't understand. Your Highness knows that Emperor Datsan won't give you that woman, why are you still asking for trouble? I really can't stand the faces of those people in the main hall. I thought the people of Ronghua had the same demeanor as the Empress Dowager, but now I'm mistaken. A great country has such a broad mind. The man sneered lightly, without any words. He was not speaking up for himself about this issue, but neither of them had any meaning for his identity. Perhaps there was already a consensus in his heart. Even if he knew the outcome, he wanted to fight for it, just for a moment. Lingzhou. The army marched towards the east and rested in front of Lingzhou. The moonlight was pressing, and a man in regular clothes stood with his hands covering his head. The mournful moonlight by the river complemented him perfectly. What about your Highness? Wandering by the river, the king is accustomed to it. Liu Xue saw the figure of that person, and a hint of a smile brushed her lips. She adjusted her temples and walked forward. Lian Liu heard the commotion, saw the faces of the visitors, looked around, and thought that the person had already approached. Your Highness, it has been 2 years and now I have finally returned, the woman said. Yeah, I'm finally going back. I don't know if she's okay. Do your Highness remember our first meeting? Lian Liu looked at the thin woman and dared not underestimate her. I remember the first time he came to the border 2 years ago, he was subdued by this woman before he could even settle down. General Lu's majesty is admirable in this hall. Lu Shui scratched her head with embarrassment. Your Highness, can you tell me what Chongping looks like? Lian Liu was a bit stunned. Perhaps after a long battle, he forgot that Liu Xue was the legitimate daughter of General Zhua. She had been sent to the border camp for training since childhood, where the fortress was a harsh and cold place. Moreover, she was exposed to military battles and killings, so she naturally had a great longing for the capital. Your Highness. After seeing the person stunned for a moment, the man withdrew his thoughts and thought to himself, Chongping is a place that people both love and hate. Your Highness, why do you say this? Isn't Chongping the wealthiest place in the world? General Chang said that there are many delicious dim sum dishes, good wine, interesting treasures, beautiful operas and exquisite costumes in the capital, which I have never experienced in the frontier fortress. Lian Liu looked at the flowing snow in Tianjin, and it was rare to see such a fiery side of the brave female generals on the battlefield. Okay, when we arrive in the capital, I'll take you for a walk. By the way, I've told you before, there's a person in Chongping who, besides her, I can't think of anyone else who knows how to eat, drink, and have fun. Lian Liu said with a smile on her face that she didn't notice. Liu Xue understood clearly and asked cautiously, isn't this person your Highness's beloved? Lian Liu looked at Liu Xue incredulously and said, don't look at me like that. The whole army, except for you, didn't realize that no one knew that Wei Guangxian Wang had someone in his heart. The man lowered his head somewhat embarrassed, and this scene stabbed the person across from him again. After 2 years of interaction, whether it was the strategic planning in the military camp, the morale on the battlefield, or the sharp words and expressions on the training platform. She always saw him with an icy face, calm and wise, just mentioning the person's name, he was like a boy who fell in love and was at a loss. On the second day the dark army drove through the street, looking towards the middle. The silver armor could not conceal the tired face of the man. This battle between Song and Zheng was said to be a victory, but only Lien Liue knew that it was a huge loss. On the surface, it seemed that Zheng was too late to withdraw, but in reality, that Song only obtained 2 empty cities. Those who understood it knew it well. Watching the few pedestrians passing by, unable to eat enough, Lien Liue felt a surge of sadness in her heart. The man waved his palm and the army stopped. Go see what's going on. A deputy general dismounted and looked at the women and children curled up in the corner, saying, Auntie, what happened? For a long time, Your Highness, Lingzhou has suffered from floods and crops have been destroyed. They are homeless people. Lien Liue furrowed her brows and ordered half of the soldiers' food to be distributed to the local refugees. With a gloomy heart, she said, the disaster here is severe. He doesn't believe that his father and the court have not allocated money for disaster relief food. This layer-by-layer exploitation, what should we do? Tell the soldiers to accelerate their pace. We are far from the next city, and if we follow the original plan, we may not be able to supply enough food. Yes, outdoor the girl stood beside the stone elephant by the river in a daze, and the people beside her approached cautiously. They gently dropped a cloak, and the cold fingers of the girl grabbed it tightly. I thought I had already made plans, he was my only legitimate relative in the world. Ruozhi murmured. It's okay, I'll be there all the time. The man spoke firmly. Lien Lishi looked at the little bun with red eyes from crying, his whole heart hanging up again. The pain of losing his loved one, how could he not know? The broad palm gently caressed the tear stains on Ruozhi's face, with a gentle gesture to the extreme, as if wiping away the fragile and exquisite rare treasure. Jier, it's windy outside. Let's go back to the room and watch. The girl didn't react, and the man said again. Huar, you just cried, stop boasting. Lien Lishi did not dissuade this time, only tightened the girl's cloak. The girl then had a reaction, with her arms tightly wrapped around her waist and her whole body leaning against the man's embrace. The man was a bit caught off guard, but when he reacted, he patted her back and then hid her under the cloak for a long time. I'm tired, take me back, the woman said softly. Okay, Lien Lishi was pinned down on the bed by Ruozhi, unable to move for a long time. Only a black shadow swept over him and he waited for the person to fall asleep. When he heard the person's even breathing, he carefully breathed a sigh of relief. Miao Qing, please take good care of your master and make sure to convey anything to me. Understood. End of this chapter. 6, Chapter 6. Something wrong. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Something happened when Chu Yunxi returned from the morning. He heard that the old emperor had an accident. He disliked the appearance of running over without caring, and now seeing the strong and comfortable feelings of this man and woman added to his ridicule. Jealousy. What qualifications does he have? He could feel that kind of dependence that Ruozhi had never shown in front of him. Even at this moment, Ruozhi in his eyes was still the female doll of the ghosts and horses in the Xia country, so unhappy that she walked out. Lien Lishi had seen the figure of Chu Yunxi, but the two had never met, and he couldn't determine the person's identity. He just asked Bushi to investigate. Fifth Prince's Mansion, Master, come ahead and report that our people have been discovered. Bushi was puzzled and said, how could that be? Lien Lishi gestured to the black-clothed man and said to the servant. Returning to your highness, the second prince has been alone since Lingzhou, with only a few attendants. Our people are already very secure, and suddenly, during the battle, a group of unknown black-clothed men broke into us. We are unable to do so, and we request your highness to punish us. Do you know who that person is? Lien Lishi said coldly in her eyes. I saw the informant in front stuttering for a while, unable to speak, and Bushi kicked him over. Speak up. We found tattoos on the black-clothed man from the imperial master's mansion. After speaking, the room fell into silence, and the informant was sweating profusely with trembling hands, afraid of provoking this person with a breath. Ruozhi saw that the person would stay any longer and leave horizontally. He gestured for the person to come down with a glance, then turned around and looked at Lian Lixi again. "Master, are you okay? If this matter really comes from the hands of little Empress, I'm afraid she already knows our plan." Lian Lixi remained silent, with a neither angry nor happy expression, but picked up the tea cup and began to enjoy it. Seeing this, Ruozhi couldn't calm his airway. "I shouldn't say something inappropriate to my subordinate. If you don't say it, don't say it." Lian Lixi sat on the chair, sipping tea calmly. "Over the years, you have been closely following little Emperor Shi, fearing that you might end up in danger and almost lose your life. We, as attendants, have noticed this. But now that you have returned to Beijing, she has never planned anything for you. I apologize for you. The relationship between me and her has never been a bargaining chip in this power struggle, and besides, Ruozhi, are you really just thinking about me?" Lian Lixi had a profound meaning. The man put down his tea set and glanced at Beth, who was kneeling on the ground. "You haven't even cared about what happened back then. It's a grudge from the previous generation. Even if you blame us, you should still blame our family." Upon hearing this, Ruozhi said, "My heart to your highness can be seen by the sun and moon, and the kindness of saving lives cannot be repaid. Okay, just remember, if you're loyal to me, you're loyal to her, and I'm her." The words and phrases were powerful, as if promising something or warning something. Since then, Ruozhi has never said anything about Ruozhi. Left Prime Minister's mansion. Li Qing had just finished his busy work from the drunken immortal tower one day and planned to go back and take a quick nap. As he passed by, he heard the sound of arguments coming from the old man's study. "Li Linhai. Who is so bold as to dare to touch my grandson?" Li Yu said, "Father, this group of people is well trained and clean in their work. We have no way to start." Li Linhai. "It's really useless. Let's go out." When Li Yu came out, he had a face-to-face meeting with Li Qing. Li Yu was the adopted son of Li Linhai and had been working for him in the court for many years. Li Yu was a bit stunned when he saw Li Qing, and a hint of something unusual flashed in his eyes. He then politely bowed to the other person and was about to turn around and leave. Li Qing couldn't stand the other party's constant flattery and couldn't help but speak sarcastically. "Oh, I was scolded by the old man again. What's up with this late night?" The other party didn't answer, just bowed and left. Li Qing made a sound of cutting and didn't bother himself. He turned around and went back to his room to sleep. The next day, he told Ruozhi, the person in the drunken immortal tower, about the matter. Evergreen Pavilion. After Lian Lixi left, Ruozhi's shrewd eyes showed no signs of drowsiness and looked at Miao Qing. "Hurry up and call him over." Yes, she had anticipated Lian Lixi's actions early on. If she had sent someone to secretly protect her for a long time, and if there were any unforeseen circumstances, she must protect her thoroughly. However, in recent years, Li Yu has made remarkable achievements in the military and has a significant impact on the face of the royal family and the morale of the soldiers. Any slight negligence may harm the foundation of the country. While worrying, Ruozhi felt a bit disappointed and even disappointed. She would never believe that he would use the blessings and misfortunes of the people as the price for killing Lian Liyue. He shouldn't have done it. When Mo Yu arrived, he saw the woman's deputy standing, her yellow and white robe bringing the beauty closer to a hint of coldness, making it impossible to look directly at her. "How much longer will it take?" "2 days is enough." The woman turned and gestured for Mo Yu to sit down. "Your Majesty's body is not strong enough. Now that the princes and I are still young, we can only ask you to hold on for another 2 years. If you need it, just speak up." Mo Yu hurriedly said, "You're serious? If things can be done, Mo is already blessed and blessed. How dare you expect too much? It's just that this method is fierce, on the line of life and death. Please think twice. Don't worry, I will explain to your majesty that Dr. Mo only needs to be prepared to enter the palace at any time. Yes. My grandfather is also bothering Mr. Mo. Where, thank you for your trust. Mo is extremely grateful. Palace, your majesty, Xiaodi Shi asked me to reply to you and say. Emperor Ming nodded as he listened, feeling prepared in his heart. After a while, the eunuch said that the empress was seeking an audience. Just as he was thinking of finding a reason to avoid, he couldn't help but think that the person had already entered the inner hall. I saw the woman dressed in luxury and well-maintained, with a pear blossom on her face, looking very haggard. Your Majesty, you must make the decision for my postpartum baby. I only have these 2 sons. From childhood to adulthood, I, as a mother, have not been able to accompany him. Now why have I suffered such a calamity? How can the royal family face? Your Majesty. The woman sobbed uncontrollably and sat on the ground, while Emperor Ming quickly picked up the person. My good queen, what are you doing? I will immediately instruct my uncle to investigate this matter. Don't worry, I will definitely seek justice for you. Seeing the emperor's statement like this, Li Xiangxiang couldn't do any more extreme actions, fearing that he would lose his mother's demeanor. Li Yu hurriedly arrived early in the morning and met with Empress Li before entering, tacit agreement. Your Majesty, the assassination of King Guangxian will result in a near death. Li Yu burst into tears. Who did it? Emperor Ming asked symbolically. We haven't found it yet. Let me leave it to you to handle. You are the child's uncle, so I naturally feel at ease. But your Majesty, rest assured that I will definitely find the thief and do justice to King Guangxian. Ikuan Palace. After returning to the palace, Li Xiangxiang's face was not bad, and there was no more image of a loving mother who had been in pain for her just now. He's really a restless person. I thought he would become a prince and be helpful to my Li family, but that's great. I haven't written to him since I went out for 2 years, and now he's causing this kind of trouble again. Do you think he was born to conquer me? The grandmother on the side squinted her eyes and said, Miss, this is just angry talk. There is no son who doesn't care about his mother. The mother doesn't care about her son. It's difficult to fight outside and the war is tight, so there's no need to rush someone back. After listening to the grandmother's words, Li Xiangxiang rolled her eyes and sighed. This child has been growing up with that queen since childhood, and he doesn't seem to be close to me. All I can hope for is the 4th child. When will that child return to Beijing? Li Xiangxiang's appearance truly reveals her true feelings. With a somewhat motherly appearance, if we talk about why Lian Liyue is not close to her, we must start from 20 years ago. At that time, the empress was alive, and the royal family had an unwritten rule that all the first children born to the empress must be entrusted to the central palace for custody. Although Li Xiangxiang was a noble consort at the time, her arms could not withstand her thighs. Even though everyone knew that she was the second prince's biological mother, the mother-son relationship was still one layer apart. According to Ruozhi's words, the appearance of Lian Liyue always reminds Li Xiangxiang of the days when she was oppressed by the queen, which naturally repels her. Sanjiaju Ruozhi dismissed everyone and just fed medicine to Fu Qingyuan, twisting a blanket for him. Child, you're busy with your work. Grandpa, my body is tough, cough cough. I'm used to showing off, you. The most important thing now is to rest. Once you get well, I'll take you back to northern Xinjiang. Upon hearing the words, northern Xinjiang, Fu Qingyuan's eyes lit up instantly. It was the place where he had been fighting for half his life, and as a result, he lost his only son. Miss Ji, do you still remember what happened in northern Xinjiang back then? Fu Qingyuan leaned on his arm and stood up his upper body. If she has a slight head, is it in northern Xinjiang? That is probably the most unforgettable memory in her life, because there was her father, mother, and brother. She remembered things earlier than her peers from a young age, so naturally, she still remembers the war vividly. Memory Emperor's mansion. Early in the morning, the people in the mansion were hurried and bustling. Hey, who is that? The silk hanging is crooked, I don't know. It's a bit to the right, not right, a bit more to the left. Everyone, listen to me. Today, cheer me up. Be a little more playful. The master said that our young lady's 6th birthday is big and grand. Remember that. Remember, everyone. Speak up. Remember, this was the butler Liang heir at that time. In his memory, he was a thin and not tall man, and everyone privately called him Liang Monkey. Later, he left with his father and never returned. His whereabouts are still unknown. Little monkey, how are you preparing my flour cake? Little Ruozhi asked with her waist crossed. Upon seeing Ruozhi, Liang heir quickly changed his expression and raised his eyes slightly. Miss Hui, I have already instructed the kitchen to prepare it early in the morning. Don't worry, we will definitely satisfy you at the dinner party. Alright, seeing that you've been tired these past few days, I'll give you this ring as a reward. If the banquet satisfies me, it won't be without everyone's rewards, Ruozhi said to everyone. Liang took the agate ring while dancing and quickly bowed to thank him. This day is a once-in-a-century grand event in the capital city, even for royal banquets, it has surpassed it. For a while, whether it is the imperial court, nobles, aristocratic families, or foreign countries, all influential figures from this continent have come one after another to attend the banquet, with their father welcoming them at the entrance and their aunt welcoming guests in the inner courtyard. Jie, what do you think this is? Xiao Lianli said. It's amber. Where did you find it? Ruozhi clapped her hands and exclaimed. If Jie likes it, I will do whatever you want. At the banquet, on what Ruozhi thought was the happiest day, news came from northern Xinjiang that the barbarians had launched a surprise attack, and her grandmother, as the vanguard, unfortunately died. The daughter of General Zhua, this is her only impression of her grandmother. In Ruozhi's memory, her grandmother was the most majestic woman in the imperial master's mansion, even if Ruozhi had never seen her before. Her parents, grandparents, and even the most inconspicuous servants who swept the floor admired her greatly. After the banquet was over and everything had not yet been tidied up, Grandpa and everyone rushed for several months to arrive in northern Xinjiang. Rao has traveled to various places in recent years, but the days in northern Xinjiang can be said to be the most difficult days she has experienced. That day, as usual, Ruozhi was listening to the war situation of the adults in the corner of the military tent when suddenly a servant rushed in. General, it's not good, the barbarians are sneaking in again. Before she could finish speaking, there was a fierce battle outside the tent, with flames raging everywhere. The adults were not ready yet, so they picked up their weapons and engaged in the battle outside the tent. Xiao Ruozhi was afraid and anxious, and in a panic, her father's deputy took the people away from the camp's trouble zone. When I saw my father again, it was already a confrontation between the two armies, and Fu Qingyuan was facing off against the leader of the barbarian tribe. Bold barbarians, invade the land of our Tsang country, destroy our cities, kill our people, and humiliate our soldiers. I will fight to the death with you today. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Seizing the Moment. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Seizing the moment before Fu Qingyuan could react, the leader of the barbarian tribe wore a man with a father's face, and the sharp bend was placed around his neck. General, you must think carefully. If there is war today, your son will immediately die. Fu Qingyuan almost fell off the horse, but years of experience forced him to make a decision in front of the army. For a long time, the divine martial general spoke up, today's battle is for the country and the families of millions of people. What if we take my family's life? The voice echoed through the three armies, and they asked if it was their own choice, who could be as resolute and righteous as General Fu. If she saw the person on the other side laughing, it was a unique understanding between their father and son. In an instant, the person Yang Chang walked forward and before leaving, for the sake of the great Tsang, why be afraid of death? After speaking, he raised his head to the sky and howled straight towards the sharp blade. If she still remembers that day, his father was never before in a state of embarrassment, with messy hair and a body full of barbarians, but that was also his never before shining light, resolute and fearless, like the uncompromising swan. This great war lasted for 3 days and 3 nights, and the soldiers were either driven by emotions or long-standing dissatisfaction and anger. The battle was fought beautifully and happily. And from beginning to end, the 6-year-old girl was just locked in a tiny iron box, witnessing and feeling everything, while the screams, blood, and dust were ultimately a vivid performance lesson for Ruozhi. Memories come to an end. The girl's wet eyes turned red, unable to calm down for a long time. Grandpa asked you, what should you do as an imperial teacher in the future? I am serving the country and the people, sharing your worries for you. Ruozhi replied. Do you know why my husband's family has been passed down for 100 years? Loyalty. Absolute loyalty. I'll ask you again, what if the man you love is an emperor? Loyal to him. What if he's not? Kill him. In April, everything is peaceful. Today is the hairpin ceremony for Gu Ronghua, the daughter of the Gu family. The Gu family is a 100-year-old clan, which had already settled and taken root in Chongping during the previous dynasty, and has a considerable reputation. This is also a place that the Li family cannot compete with. The Tsang regards the right as the highest priority, so he worships the right prime minister. Ruozhi searched in the treasury early in the morning. Master, you've almost emptied the warehouse. Why aren't you satisfied? Those who don't know think you're picking a dowry. You also said, if you hadn't remembered the wrong day and left my long-prepared neon clothes on the way, when should I prepare the gift on the same day? Mississippi, Miao Qing stood awkwardly on the side. In fact, it was not his fault for this. Firstly, the distance from Chongping in Jiangnan was very far, coupled with the slippery road caused by continuous months of heavy rain. Secondly, the drawings provided by Ruozhi were too complex, and the gold thread was of rare quality. Embroiderers and craftsmen dared not take it lightly, which caused delays. Ruozhi searched for a long time but couldn't find a satisfactory one. In the end, she took this hairpin painting, and it was said that Gu Ronghua was the most talented woman. However, Ruozhi obtained this hairpin painting from an elder of Nangong Academy and originally intended to give it to her during her wedding. Sooner or later, people have to be given away. Miao Qing saw his master searching for the precious treasure that he had to copy and admire every day, and his mouth grew unbelievably wide. He said, Master, this is. Don't say too much, don't waste your time. Hurry up and unpack this picture, put it away, and match it with a sandalwood box. Right Prime Minister's mansion. In the vast mansion, the servants happily tidied up, not sparing any corner. In a corner of the boudoir, several maids surrounded, only for today's protagonist. Gu Ronghua. Linger, am I beautiful today? The woman's soft voice. In Linger's heart, the girl is the most beautiful. This is not a compliment. In fact, Gu Ronghua's appearance is the most among the noble women in the Great Tsang. Some people here may ask, so what about comparing with Ruozhi? Gu Ronghua also wants to know. I heard that the legitimate daughter of the imperial teacher is exceptionally talented and has a superior appearance. I wonder if I might meet her today, the woman hoped. I heard from the servant that the imperial master's mansion has sent many gifts, but there are no gifts from the legitimate daughter in the mansion, said the mother. Linger said in a dark tone. Since the person from the imperial master's mansion returned in more than 3 months, people outside have always compared her to the young lady and even said that she is the most noble daughter in the Great Tsang. Pooh! I don't know who can rival my own master. Master, I have heard you mention this person 800 times this month. Not to mention that her identity is just playing with the court's generation, even if that woman's talent is amazing. As the master said, you are the most prestigious hostess in the world. No nonsense, the woman scolded. Linger lowered her head in grievance. From childhood to adulthood, the young lady always treated her gently. Now that she spoke in such a tone for the sake of outsiders, the grandmother gave her a wink and let her down. Miss, don't be angry. This girl is also unintentional. I know she has no intention, but I can't resist listening intentionally. It's just a habit. If she really follows her words and enters the palace that eats people without blinking an eye, what will happen to her temperament? Ronghua urgently said. In fact, Linger is also right. Everyone is discerning. Although the emperor is in his prime, the choice of the heir apparent is uncertain, and everyone naturally has a sense of luck in this position. Originally, as the legitimate eldest son, this Prince Ruoping had the most hope. Emperor Ming also thought of it this way. He waited for a few years to sharpen the Lian Li Feng outside, and this eldest prince was also in high spirits. At the age of 10, he led troops to destroy a small western country. These years of fighting outside, he also had a great reputation. This position of crown prince was already firmly established, but it was not surprising that because of the matter of the former empress, his thoughtful son became a monk. It was truly not the country, but the clothes and bowls. Since then, Emperor Ming has been meticulous in his work and treats all his princes equally. The ministers and the outside world suddenly had no idea. If it had been natural for the fifth prince to have a legitimate name, but now this palace is surnamed Li, and the second and fourth princes also have hope. One is fighting outside and has made great achievements, while the other is handling government affairs in the inner court, only having rules and regulations, and it is also a dead-end game. It can be said that Ruozhi is the lock of this game, and Ronghua is the key to unlock it. People say that if anyone gets this daughter of the Gu family, half the crown prince, or even the throne, they are all in control. And today's opportunity must be indescribable. Fifth Prince's mansion Lian Lishi looked at the letter and said, opportunities cannot be lost. Chuanqiu's several big characters sat limply on the letter, as if every drop of ink and strength were mocking him, mocking how foolish he was. Ruozhi, is this the answer you gave me? Ultimately, for you, only power is the only shackle that binds you. Great, I've said that since it's what you want, I'll do it. The man spoke forcefully and fiercely. Bexi, prepare a good gift for your highness and go to the prime minister's mansion. At dinner Right Xiang, along with Ronghua and his family, held a ceremony in the backyard temple. By then, the courtyard was already full of guests. It can be said that the children of these high-ranking officials are all formed into factions and not very lively. However, in the past 2 years, Ruozhi has hardly been in the capital, so she is naturally a newcomer to the women's family. Moreover, this circle has always been quite critical of Ruozhi, and people do not like women to show off. At most, it is the aunt in the boudoir who holds a poetry party together and gathers for a while. It's strange to say that women from ordinary families in Datsang were originally open-minded and had a high status. Some landlords even had daughters who had several maids, and some poor families sold their sons to restaurants and wealthy families early on. However, the culture of aristocratic families was that of women inside and men outside, which was really difficult to understand. If she wandered around the yard and saw no one to greet her, she would be discouraged and sit on a chair to eat. It's so boring, even Miao Qin can't come in. The girls over there seemed to have noticed Ruozhi's presence and began to mutter softly. Ah, who is that woman over there? Why are you so unfamiliar with her? Said a woman, the one in the green clothes. I don't know, but she grew up pretty. Really, I thought Ranji's appearance was already the most eye-catching among everyone, so I didn't expect to have another one. Li Shiyu heard those people talking about Ruozhi, but she didn't have a good expression. She leaned in and said, "You don't know yet," right next to her. She is the legitimate daughter of the imperial master's mansion and will be a powerful minister in the future. How could she stoop to our little women's inner courtyard today? Ah! Isn't she? She's just Fu Ronghua, isn't she too good? That's right, I think it's just like that. How can we compare it to Ran? Li Shiyu had just spoken very loudly, and in no time, Ruozhi's side was surrounded by a circle of people, with many derogatory and insulting words. Ruozhi was enjoying her meal, and when she looked up, she saw the women looking at her with strange eyes, like those heinous sinners. What are you looking at me for? Ruozhi's big eyes, filled with innocence, said again, is food not allowed to be eaten in this courtyard? Everyone's eyes were even more incredulous now, but they glanced at Ruozhi. They scanned around and saw the only familiar face. Li Shiyu was Li Qing's sister, and Ruozhi naturally recognized it. With just one step, she grabbed Li Shiyu's arm, sisterly, long time no see. If she gave the other party a big smile, but Li Shiyu seemed to have been splashed with dirty water and quickly pulled back her sleeve. However, in front of everyone, she couldn't ignore it and had to fake a smile. There were many people just now and I didn't see you. Why didn't you wait in the front hall and come to the inner courtyard? Ruozhi replied, I am a woman, so I naturally come to this inner courtyard. Besides, the front hall is full of men, and it's not easy for me as a child to infiltrate. It's just that everyone looks at me like this, making my sister so puzzled. No, my sister may have made a mistake. My sister hasn't returned for a long time. The sisters look strange. It's inevitable that you are so beautiful and attract attention. If she had just thought of replying, she would only say, Miss is here, and everyone's gaze would have shifted. The maidservant approached, and two large doors shook open. A graceful and elegant girl in purple attire walked in. She wore a flower crown, a gold-studded hollowed-out square on her head, and pink fluffy and eerie earrings on her ears. She was dressed in a purple swallow and moon skirt, with red lips and phoenix, and willow leaf curved eyebrows. She exuded a cool and aloof demeanor, truly deserving of the words wonderful and extraordinary. According to Ruozhi's recollection later on, it seems that the gods and goddesses from all over the world were not an exaggeration. At that time, even Li Shi joked that if she were a man, she might not have married him. When everyone saw the protagonist present, they shifted their focus to Gu Ranji and ignored Ruozhi. It was also true that Ruozhi's actions were not what they admired and pursued. So if she walked alone in the corner and started to cat, occasionally looking at herself, am I really that bad? The woman looked in the mirror in the yard and saw a beautiful girl in an unpolished blue dress. She only had a jade pendant on her waist and a sandalwood hairpin on her head. Although the material on her body was top-notch, it was simple and unadorned, with only a simple single screw hair bun on her head and unkempt broken hair at her temples. Originally, girls of this age were supposed to have bangs, but the person found it too troublesome to read and do things every day. She had bangs on her hair very early. As Ruozhi looked at her bulging breasts, she instinctively scanned the young girl in Hawaii who was surrounded by everyone, then glanced at herself and finally held back a sentence. You truly deserve to be a lady from a wealthy family. Upon careful consideration, something is wrong again. I am also a member of the group, but unfortunately, I am not a lady. Today, in the spirit of being able to say a few words to Gu Ranji, Ruozhi couldn't even touch someone else's clothes. Just as Ruozhi wanted to go back in a disheveled manner, she stopped and said, the second princess is here. Lien Yuero. In Ruozhi's impression, when she was young, Lien Yuero had a good relationship with Ruozhi. However, Lien Yuero's body was extremely poor and she couldn't go far. However, Ruozhi was strong and lively, and after a few moves, she gradually became estranged. Not long after, she saw a beautiful woman with a weak willow supporting the wind walk in. Lien Yuero was dressed in a group of rosy and colorful plum blossom delicate gauze, draped in a jade-patterned woven brocade feather cloak, wearing a precious silver crystal jade bracelet in her hand, and a green and dreamy mu earring. Although it seemed thin, it did not lose any royal demeanor. As soon as she entered the door, Lien Yuero's delicate eyes met Ruozhi for just a moment. Ruozhi had thought she would come over to greet her, but she didn't expect the person who didn't give a single glance. She faced Gu Ranji's reluctance and walked towards the corridor, leaving only Ruozhi's hand hanging in the air, which was very awkward. Everyone saw that sisters were very happy to talk, so they started to talk to each other. Why do you think second princess has such a good relationship with Gu Nu? I'm ignorant. The woman glanced around and lowered her voice as there were few people around. If we say that these two princesses, in terms of appearance and talent, are outstanding among the other princesses, but their bodies are just weak willows and support wind. They grew up in a medicine jar from a young age, or were born in the royal family and supported by famous doctors and medicinal herbs. They may have died prematurely. What happened? It is rumored that during her pregnancy, Empress Dowager Xian was framed and gave birth prematurely, which caused the second princess to have congenital deficiencies. Today, she is also weak and naturally suffers the same pain. No, I see that the daughter of the Gu family has a radiant face, not as delicate as you said. You're not bluffing, are you? Oh, don't you think she looks good now? She used to be a sickly child, but later on, I don't know what method the Gu family used. In the past 2 years, Gu Nu's body has miraculously improved. However, Gu Nu is afraid that the second prince will distance herself from her and pretend to be weak. Surprisingly, one day I will inquire about what kind of immortal the Gu family has invited, even the royal family. If she has been tinkering for a long time and hasn't climbed the ladder, she has heard a lot of interesting gossip and even immortals. That's the miraculous elixir I gave you, Mississippi. It was barely until the second half of the banquet, and all the male and female family members gathered in the courtyard. This Gu mansion was also unique, with a stone arch bridge built in the courtyard, accompanied by the river, flowers and plants. It was truly elegant and beautiful. Whether it's the Li family or the Gu family, why is my imperial master's mansion so boring? Ruozhi complained to Miao Qing. Master, this is a far cry. Although our imperial master's mansion does not have the rockeries of Li's mansion or the small river of Gu's mansion, our imperial master's mansion is rich. If we talk about these rare treasures, not to mention the Li and Gu families, even the whole continent cannot find a second one. If she quickly screamed and shook her head, tacky. The conversation changed. But I love listening, girl. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. As soon as Lien Liying returned to the capital from another city, she caught up with Gu Ranji's banquet. Originally, he didn't want to come, but Empress Dowager and uncle put pressure on him, so she had to grit her head and drag her tired body over. The person beside her said, "Your Highness, you're not in high spirits today." Lien Liying quickly smiled bitterly, shook her head, and saw the young master next to her exclaim, "Wow," and point to her companion, "Look at the little lady on the bridge, she looks so beautiful." "Come on, she's just a little girl. Don't bother with anything." "But why do I look a bit familiar and can't even call my name?" End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Made a mistake. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Made a mistake. Li Qing heard these people mention that Ruozhi was looking at her in a vulgar man's tone, and felt unhappy. "She's Fu Ronghua, don't think about it." The person heard this name and was so scared that the wine in their hands spilled and choked. The young masters on the side sneered, and Li Qing left satisfied. Upon hearing Ruozhi's name, Lien Liying's eyes lit up and she couldn't help but think of her childhood memories. It was 6 years ago, when the princes and princesses were attending classes together in the Imperial Academy, unlike now when everyone had their own thoughts and often played together. Due to the large number of children in the Imperial Palace and the reluctance of various empresses to deal with them, siblings were always not allowed to play. Although she did not like it, she had no choice. At that time, Ruozhi, the only outer room of the Imperial Academy, always gathered people from various empresses to play at the Imperial Master's mansion. With her ability to be calm and active, she naturally became the king of children there and the only force that could gather them together. This was also one of the few happy times for these royal children. Later, there was an incident in the imperial master's mansion, and Ruozhi was no longer close to them. Now, in the royal family, only his second and fifth brothers can maintain the same relationship with Ruozhi. Lian Liying, who had regained her memory, saw that the woman in green had already stepped off the bridge, and next to her was the little Miao Qing who was playing with them. With a bitter smile, she finally didn't step forward. If she recognized Lian Liying at a glance, she had no intention of negotiating with the fourth prince. After all, the lessons of childhood were vivid in her mind, and she was certain that her current strategy would be played around by the fourth prince. If she didn't want to touch this mold. But she is the imperial teacher, and she will inevitably hover in the future. If she withdraws now, then she will not need to inherit the mantle of this imperial teacher's mansion. If she suppressed a little fear in her heart, she bravely stepped forward. Your Highness. Ruozhi bowed slightly, and the man was a bit stunned, waiting to reflect. Ruozhi, I didn't expect you to come today too. After Lian Liying finished speaking, she gestured for her to sit in the empty seat next to her. Ruozhi did not refuse and calmly sat over, with Miao Qing standing on the side. And those young masters saw Ruozhi's figure and fell silent in an instant. Where was the playfulness just now? Just a little while later, Ronghua walked over, and next to her was the handsome face. If Ruozhi fixed her eyes on the food on her mouth, it instantly became tasteless, so she withdrew her hand and lowered her head. Lian Liying had already noticed something was wrong with the little people around her when Lian Lishi came in. She hesitated and only gently patted and supported Ruozhi's back as a sign of comfort. I'm a bit uncomfortable. Ruozhi and Lian Liying said hello and slipped away from the banquet, daydreaming alone in a corner by the river. What are you hiding inside, watching my jokes? After speaking, a man wearing a fox mask came down from the sky, and the scattered leaves threw out a bit of sharpness. The man sat on the ground and said, Why do I see you laughing? Chu Yunshi, do you think I did something wrong? Ruozhi leaned on her chin, listless. The man didn't answer immediately, just half lying on the ground, looking vaguely at Ruozhi. Finally, reluctantly, he opened his mouth. It's impossible for you to talk to him about right or wrong, but someone doesn't want to wake up. It's just that Ronghua is really infatuated with him now, I'm afraid. I'm afraid Lian Lishi had this plan for a long time. If she was just pushing the boat with the flow, she knew. Hey, everyone in this big world knows how prestigious the imperial master's mansion is. After all, it's not just a generation of domestic slaves, and there's no kind of reward, the woman said bulging. It sounds like you're very dissatisfied, but I see you work hard for the Lian family. Why don't you come to our Xia country and serve as a supervisor for you, the man joked. If she gave the other party a face, it seemed like she was thinking of the task for the person in front of her to come here, and then leaned against their shoulder with a gossipy expression on her face. Chu Yunshi immediately understood, don't look at me like that. You know, who will take that position is the same to me. Brother Chu, life is a big deal, you can't play around. Ruozhi sighed deeply after speaking. Yes, I've taken care of you, Mississippi. But you better think about yourself. After speaking, Chu Yunshi pointed to the black shadow that appeared at an unknown time and silently left. Ruozhi turned her head and glanced slightly at the face that was touching her heartstrings. Her eyes met, and even with 1,000 words, she remained calm. Since entering the front hall, Lian Lishi has seen Ruozhi's figure, seemingly unintentional. However, his attention has never left this little guy. At first, he was annoyed by Ruozhi and Lian Liying's calm demeanor, so he deliberately walked with Ronghua. But when he saw that Qingyi left the venue, he couldn't help but follow her. Unexpectedly, she was so close to this foreign prince again. If he remembered correctly, he was also the last one to come to the imperial master's mansion. Ruozhi, I worry about you day by day and suffer unbearably, but why does it seem that you can't see any tension with me in your eyes? Is this all his own wishful thinking? The more the man thought, the more angry he became and couldn't control his anger. He strode forward and hugged the person in his arms, unable to break free for a long time. Ruozhi was not prepared for this moment and almost stumbled, but even Lishi's strength was enough to support her. Her hands hesitated repeatedly, but in the end, they did not wrap around the man's back, only patted him. There are many people here, I'm afraid others will laugh at me. Ruozhi looked around with concern. Are you afraid of this? Lian Lishi thought to chew. He didn't know why Ruozhi was so hesitant, so he didn't believe what the little guy said. Before Lian Lishi and Rosito could say a few words, they saw a woman in purple walking with everyone to this place. People were surprised to see this man and woman tightly embracing each other, as if no one was around. Whose family's young master is this? Let's have a rendezvous here. People who love to make noise come over. Even Gu Ranji couldn't help but feel embarrassed. Today was originally his coming-of-age ceremony, so why did this couple not shy away from it? Ruozhi was facing one side of the crowd, in full view of everyone. Ruozhi felt uneasy and rushed. We have been calculated. Lian Lishi was facing away, but it was not difficult to explain their current situation through the river and the noisy voice. Not afraid, there's me. After speaking, the man took off his cloak and wrapped Ruozhi up, holding the other person's hand. It wasn't until the two of them walked out that everyone could see the man's face clearly. It turns out to be the fifth prince. I can't believe it. Yeah, isn't it true that the fifth prince doesn't like women? Who knows? I don't know who that woman is, he can't control her so much. People were talking about it all, and Gu Ranji was also surprised. Originally, she thought the fifth prince was enamored with her and was excited for a long time. Now, she wants to see what that inconspicuous little fox spirit inside her cloak looks like. Unexpectedly, Ranji didn't know that His Highness was encouraging the beauty together. Why not go to the banquet and introduce to everyone? Gu Ranji spoke. Thank you very much for your kindness. She's afraid of danger. It's getting late, so we'll leave first. The man protected her behind. Brother Wu, don't be so stingy. Today is Miss Gu's birthday. Can you introduce us to Mei Jiaonyang so that I can open my eyes to the sixth brother? Which girl from the same family has made Prince Wu, who has never been close to women, so protective? Lian Lirong joked. That's it, that's it. Everyone started cheering. Lian Lirong had a playful expression on her face, only realizing that the gaze on the other side seemed to be cannibalistic. She realized the danger and then restrained her smile, saying, Hey, today is Miss Gu's day. Let's let go of Brother Wu first. Miss Gu, look. Gu Ranji tugged at the young lady's face and said, Since your Highness Six has said so, let's all part ways. The crowd continued to be noisy, with different expressions, but the man and woman involved had already left the yard and disappeared from everyone's sight. At night, Lian Lishi originally intended to send people back to the imperial master's mansion, but there were many people with mixed eyes, afraid that those with intentions would know that the unknown secret meeting woman today was the empress, so they could only let the carriage wander around the city wall. Ruozhi in the sedan chair was quiet like an obedient wild cat, leaning against Lian Lishi's shoulder. However, the wild cat was ultimately a wild cat, so naturally it didn't look so obedient. Ruozhi. I was wrong. After speaking, the woman hugged her tightly again. Do you know you're wrong? The man's voice was soft, and the person in his arms whispered, Lian Lishi's already cold and stern eyes became a bit softer and more affectionate. Jir, what should I do with you? If she heard this, she quickly broke free from the man's arms, looked straight at him, and hesitated to speak. After a jolt, Miao Qing, who was masked outside the carriage, said, Master and your Highness, it's getting late. The guests of the Gu mansion should have dispersed. The carriage stopped at a remote alley entrance. Ruozhi got off the carriage wearing a cloak and watched as Lian Lishi drove away. Looking at the gradually disappearing figure in the darkness, Ruozhi's heart was tingling again. If possible, she would also like to be the woman in the deep courtyard, wearing yellow stickers on the mirror every day, waiting for her husband to have children, instead of being so in love with them that they cannot even express their basic words and feelings to each other. Miao Qing followed behind the black cloak that occasionally made cries, gripping the scabbard in his hand. "Master, the weather is cold at night and your body is weak. It's better to return to the mansion earlier and don't harm yourself." The person in the black cloak quickened their pace upon hearing this, only to hear a crisp and sharp voice speak in the darkness. "Sister Ji, how about chatting?" "Who?" The master and servant heard a sound without any warning, and both raised their vigilance. Miao Qing's sword scabbard was always ready to be pulled out. Under Ruozhi's exploration, a calm figure appeared in her sight in the dark night, and the two finally regained a bit of their murderous aura. "Ruozhi. Fourth Highness, why are you here? Are you following me?" The man calmly shook the fan in his hand and said, "Sister Ji, don't panic or be angry. Actually, I have wanted to reminisce with her for a long time. However, in recent years, you have been traveling abroad all year round. There were many noisy people at the banquet just now, and we didn't say a few words, which has become a lot unfamiliar. It's such a smile again, such eyes, just like when I was a child, if she can't eat it. But at this moment and here, is it really the fourth prince's sincerity to reminisce about the past?" The man laughed again, not to mention Ruozhi, but even Miao Qing felt a chill from the bottom of his heart. It seemed that as long as the person across from him was willing, the two of them would definitely die on the spot tonight. Lian Liying saw the person inside the cloak revealing her full face, her heart calmed down for a moment, and she regained her composure. "If you are a smart person, when will you learn from those people to beat around the bush? After all, you don't trust me. It really hurts me, fourth brother." If she scrutinizes the man's aimless acting, with her current skills, she cannot see how true and false his words are. "Your Highness, there's no need to do this. What do you mean by intercepting here? Shuangquai, why don't we form an alliance instead?" "Alliance? My husband and I are both vassals of the Lian family. You are one of the crown princes, and Ronghua dares not cause trouble." Lian Liying smiled again, different from the previous two gloomy smiles. This time, he smiled very tactfully. Ruozhi, you finally told me the first truth today. One of the rulers, if you scare that ghost from Lao Lu with this sentence, he may have to react for a few days, but that's not what I want to say. If she couldn't open her eyes and almost fell due to the cold wind in the latter half of the night, Miao Qing's hands and eyes quickly supported her, which prevented her from swaying. "It's almost dawn now, please speak up quickly. The assassination of the second prince was the responsibility of Old Five, which led to Old Five's failure. It was your responsibility to save Old Two. You two are really interesting." If she stumbled again, Miao Qing quickly called out to the master, to make the person with scattered consciousness wake up a bit. Lian Liying looked at the weak person across from her, with a hint of pride and unexpected success in her eyes. "Your goal is simple, to be loyal to your majesty. Although we can all guess who your father's preferred heir is, your majesty has not given you specific instructions, so you will not allow any of our princes to have an accident before this. Even your highness, you dare not slack off. Indeed, my husband's family has assisted the emperor for several generations, protecting any potential future heir. This is my responsibility." Ruozhi's eyes had a hint of crimson. Lian Liying glanced meaningfully at the woman and said, "This is indeed a matter of personal responsibility, but the complexity of the matter lies in the fact that you and Lao Wu were in harmony, but you hindered Lao Wu for your so-called responsibilities. On the other hand, second brother has held military power for many years and has achieved remarkable military achievements. The court is intricately intertwined, and he can make Lao Wu, who has always been benevolent and righteous, kill him. I believe you know in your heart that second brother must have caused fatal harm to Lao Wu before this. Although it was only 2 years of guarding the spirit, it seems to be carefree. In fact, you know better than anyone else how many jackals and wolves have been eyeing him, and you once again, for the sake of your so-called duty, I hurt Lao Wu, including Gu Nu. If she didn't expect the person across from her to speak so bluntly about her behavior, the guilt towards Lian Lishi made her unable to stop feeling uncomfortable, but she couldn't soften her heart and absolutely couldn't be biased. The woman paused and said, "Okay, Miao Qing, your master, I'm doing it for free. In front of the fourth prince of the divine arithmetic, I can see everything at a glance, very transparent. But what is the connection between this and the alliance you mentioned at the beginning?" Miao Qing bravely said. End of this chapter. 9, Chapter 9. People with Aspiration. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. People with Aspiration. On the way back to the city, Liu Xue looked at the cold and stern person, then fell into contemplation again. His Second Highness has lost his soul again. He often does this, winning and losing battles like this. Once, she accidentally saw him receive a letter from the capital. She knew for the first time that the cold and ruthless Prince Guangxian would also smile. As a woman, how could she not know that it was written to him by someone she admired, so that no one else could blend in with him? This time, an unknown messenger handed him something, and His Highness almost fell off his horse. Looking at the man's worried expression, she was very anxious but couldn't help it all. "Your Highness, we should probably be back in Chongping in 5 days, said Liu Xue. "Okay." Liu Xue shook her head, and Lian Liyue's deputy Wang Changlu tightened his saddle. While resting, Liu Xue only heard the two of them arguing. "Your Highness, she has half a concern for you in her heart. Do you still want to protect that woman like this? Long Wei, don't say anything, didn't she help us this time?" The man's tone was light and somewhat self-deprecating. "Your Highness, don't deceive yourself anymore. She's just giving you an explanation to your Majesty. In the end, if something really happens to you, even if he is the established heir, he will not be able to escape the blame. With so many lives hanging on the line, you don't know who she is facing. Now that you're using this labor to stabilize you, isn't it just to let him sit in that position firmly? Stop talking, Changlu. I remember you've been away all year, so I won't follow the rules with you this time. I'll go back to Chongping, don't be so." After speaking, the man left and returned to the tent, leaving only Wang Changlu alone in anger. Liu Xue carefully explored, and Wang Changlu saw that it was Liu Xue, and a hint of awe returned to his eyes. "General Liu." Liu Xue nodded and said, "I see your Highness has been restless for the past 2 days. What were you arguing about just now?" Wang Changlu looked in the direction of Chongping and mocked the corner of his mouth, saying, "What could it be? It's not that woman's problem yet. Our army is desperately guarding the front line, but in my opinion, this great song will definitely be accompanied by this woman who plays with power in the future. It's not good." Liu Xue wanted to learn more about the woman at Wangchang Road intersection, but the other person said, "You can't have stopped your mouth because you didn't know her when you returned to Chongping City. It is not difficult to guess the concern of His Highness heir for this woman, even if she is willing to argue with her brothers who have been fighting with her for many years. Since that is the case, she really has some expectations for coming to Chongping this time. A corner of Chongping City, I am willing to wholeheartedly assist the future crown prince without resorting to any means, but as long as I care about my daughter, she is the queen of this great world." Lian Liying gritted her teeth, word by word. If she and Miao Qing looked at each other with a puzzled expression. "Ruozhi. Do you like taking care of women?" Upon hearing this, Lian Liying felt as if she had heard a big joke. "I said, what kind of enchanting drug did Lao Wu give you, making you think that all men in the world need love from their children?" And this sentence was spoken by the most powerful person in the future of our great Song kingdom. After mocking Lian Liying, she turned around and left, holding the folding fan and half a bottle of wine in her hand. She waved her hand and disappeared into the darkness. Miao Qing replied, "Your Highness, are you not drunk and playing with us in a drunken frenzy?" If she didn't answer, she looked deeply at the disappearing place and walked straight into the carriage, saying, "Go back to your mansion." The next morning in the morning court, Emperor Ming did not appear in the main hall, and Ruozhi did not go to court because she couldn't bear it last night. Ling Gong Gong. Your Majesty cannot attend the court today. All the ministers have this proclamation and will leave the court if nothing happens. The several ministers led by him were somewhat surprised. They were all people who had followed His Majesty for decades. Since Emperor Ming ascended the throne, except for the opportunity to go on a local tour, he has been in court for decades without interruption. However, today, I think of the recent rumors that His Majesty's body has shown signs of decline and may not be able to survive this winter. This, Lingong, is there anything that is delaying Your Majesty? As courtiers, we will wait. Yeah, Grandpa, Your Majesty is the most diligent. Why suddenly doesn't he go to the morning court? It's scary and unsettling. Today is a busy period, and we need Your Majesty to sit down, so that we can rest assured. The ministers were full of gossip, and Ling Chong had been following His Majesty since childhood. She had never seen any battles before, but said calmly, "This is Your Majesty's original words. Our family is just conveying them, and if you have any objections, you can report them to Your Majesty. Besides, as servants, we should abide by the holy will, shouldn't we?" Lin Qianqiang finished speaking and left with a brush, leaving the courtiers behind. On the way down, Huairan listened to the minister's sighs and said, "I think the court is going to change. Yes, Your Majesty's body is no longer able to face the sun. I'm afraid you won't be able to withstand this winter. Adults, we should also make plans for ourselves." Huairan listened with some extra consideration in his heart. Originally, he didn't believe the rumors that His Majesty, who was steady in the court every day, was in trouble. Today, besides this reason, he couldn't think of the reason why the emperor was absent without reason. However, the crown prince was still undecided. Several princes were in their prime, and the dark currents were surging in the court. What should he, the new little transparent, do? At this moment, he couldn't help but think of that white figure, a little girl. Can she really suppress these wolves, tigers, and leopards in the court? At least at this moment, he doesn't believe it. On the other side, Lin Qianqiang pretended to be calm and withdrew from the main hall, then hurriedly rushed back to the Chaolu hall. She quickly asked the eunuch beside her, "How are you? Have you replied to the emperor's mansion?" "Gong, I'm back. Xiaodi Shi has already brought people here," the eunuch said cautiously. At the inconspicuous side door of the palace, a group of people hurried towards the path of the Chaolu hall. Chaolu hall, a bright yellow figure was on the verge of death, and the eunuchs and palace maids next to her held their breath. The blood in the copper basin was vividly visible, and the palace maids kept changing their cloths back and forth. Lin Qianqiang anxiously said, "Your Majesty, how is it?" The imperial physician said, "Ling Gong, Your Majesty's high fever does not subside, and with his already depleted body, if it continues like this, he will not be able to last for 3 nights. Lin Qianqiang collapsed to the ground with a sound, then climbed to the dragon collapse and took the hand of Emperor Ming. "Your Majesty is fine, your lucky person has his own celestial phenomena, and little emperor will have a way." For a moment, the eunuch led Ruozhi and Moyu into the room. Lin Qianqiang's eyes lit up as she looked at the person approaching, but she knelt before Ruozhi regardless of her identity and said, "Please help Your Majesty, little emperor." Ruozhi looked at Lin Qianqiang, who was even bigger than her father, and couldn't bear to lift her up. "Grandpa, what are you doing?" "Your Majesty's safety is also my safety," she said. If she finished speaking, she signaled to Mou to go forward and diagnose the pulse for His Majesty. Mou touched the wrist of Emperor Ming and looked into his eyes. Hurry up and prepare the water, your majesty urgently needs to soak it in water. Ling Qianqiang was about to order someone to decorate it, but she thought to herself, this divine doctor, behind this sleeping hall is the hot spring pool for his majesty to bathe in. After speaking, take Emperor Ming to the hot spring. MOU. Ronghua, I didn't expect your majesty's body to have collapsed like this. It seems that I shouldn't have called you radical. Now there's only this way, it's just. Ruozhi nodded and said, let me talk. Ruozhi said to Ling Qianqiang, why hasn't His Highness Wu arrived yet? Ling Qianqiang said, our family was invited early in the morning. The person who came back to report said that His Highness was investigating in a county town on the outskirts of Chongping early in the morning, and it may take some more time to come back. Now your majesty's body cannot be used by outsiders, but this method is dangerous. If there is even a slight mistake, even the great Luo immortal cannot be saved. Now that even Li Shi is not here, someone must bear the responsibility for this day, right? Ling Qianqiang saw that Ruozhi seemed to have an unspoken secret. Our family has been following your majesty since childhood. We know our status is low and we dare not call you brothers or sisters. But in times of crisis, as long as your majesty can continue our life, our family will be willing to sacrifice this old life. The words were clear, and Ruozhi signaled to MOU to start rescuing. Lian Lishi, who had a bad temper with Ruozhi last night and went straight to Qi County to handle official affairs in the middle of the night, quickly rushed back to the imperial city after learning of his father's serious illness. On the way, a man in black appeared. The little emperor has already given the military talisman to His Highness Guangxian, and His Highness V should plan for himself as soon as possible. Don't make a fool of yourself when the time comes. Could you please tell your master that even if I don't want this power, Fu Ronghua's life is mine, and no one wants to covet it. Even Li Shi gestured his horse without giving a glance. The man in black went back and knelt in front of Chu Yunshi, repeating this sentence. The man's face showed exploration, followed by sorrow, and finally transformed into ruthlessness. Very good, what I can't get, even if it's destroyed. After Chu Yunshi finished speaking, he looked towards the direction of the imperial city and said, I'm afraid there's that girl here. Emperor Ming won't be so fast. Fengming Palace Li Xiangxiang paced back and forth. This morning, she heard that your majesty had not gone to court. Originally, she wanted to make some meals and go to the Chaolu Hall to explore the way, but it was almost dark and was rejected by your majesty's busy schedule. How is grandma doing? Li Mama just rushed back from outside and said, Madam, Chaolu Palace is strictly guarded. We have no news at all, it's just. Just what? Speak up. I just heard from the eunuch in the front yard that earlier I seemed to have seen a man and a woman enter the Chaolu Hall, as if the woman's face resembled Ronghua, the legitimate daughter of the imperial master's mansion. As soon as Li Xiangxiang heard the name of the woman, he trembled. Back then, this little girl was a scammer. Because she had scolded her mistress a few times and had brought the Tianshan snake from somewhere, she locked herself and the snake together for a day and a night. When she was discovered, she had already fainted several times due to nervous exhaustion. Li Xiangxiang later exclaimed that this girl scammer was nothing more than a reincarnation of a fairy, because the snake was surprisingly obedient to Ruozhi's words. Even if they were placed together, the snake thing did not harm her at all. She also had no evidence that Ruozhi had tricked her into entering this room, and no one would believe that a 6-year-old baby would do such a thing. So, Li Xiangxiang could only eat Huanglian in silence. She didn't dare to provoke her easily these years, afraid that 10 years would pass soon, and this girl could come up with some kind of revenge for herself. Fu Ronghua, this matter is not that simple. Send someone to tell my brother immediately. End of this chapter. 10, Chapter 10 Restored. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Restored left Prime Minister's mansion. Since the Emperor did not appear in the main hall in the morning, Li Linhai has been pacing the room. Some small officials wanted to visit, but he refused. It is a fact that your Majesty's health has been damaged for a long time, but he did not expect your Majesty to be so seriously ill. At this critical moment, the Crown Prince has not yet been established, the country is unstable, and people's hearts are uneasy. Li Yu knocked on the door outside and only sneaked in with Li Linhai's permission. Li Yu said, "Father, the younger sister in the palace wrote a letter. Fu Ronghua entered the palace early and has not yet come out." Upon hearing Fu Ronghua's name, Li Linhai's eyes drifted and he immediately stroked his beard. Li Linhai said, "Now I've forgotten about that little girl. Over the years, the imperial master's mansion has been neglected, and I've forgotten the rules of Datsang." Li Yuedao said, "Father, I think she's just a girl who hasn't done anything yet. With your years of prestige in the court, that Fu Ronghua can't afford any trouble. When she suffers, she will know the current rules, and the imperial master's mansion should also retire." Li Linhai looked at the adopted son who only knew how to flatter him with anger. Although the imperial master's mansion was unable to govern due to his husband Qingyuan's old age and injuries, and his only son was killed by rebels, the legitimate lineage only had an underage husband Ronghua. He didn't know much about this woman, but he heard from the servants in the mansion that his youngest son Li Qing and that woman were very close, so he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. "I know now, go down." Li Yu stepped down, and Li Linhai had someone call Li Qing to the study for questioning. Li Qing had already fallen asleep and secretly thought to himself. There was an activity in the Drunken Immortal Tower yesterday, and he played until the latter half of the night. He originally wanted to wake up naturally from sleep, but who knew that for 800 years, no matter what medicine his old man sold in his gourd, he even called him by name to see him. Study Li Linhai saw his little son, who had not seen him for many days, grow taller again, and his worried expression on his eyebrows faded a bit. Li Qing bowed and said, "Father, why are you looking for me?" Li Linhai glanced at Li Qing's thin clothes and said, "It's early winter, wearing so little, we'll have to make trouble in the mansion again." Li Qing knew this was his father's unique care and scratched his head with some embarrassment, saying, "Father, you're in a hurry." "Just." Li Linhai shook his head and said, "It's okay, it's okay. I called you today to know the reason. I don't know, but I hope my father can make it clear. In the midst of many troubles, you are not a child either. You should know the depth of this, and it is not your intelligence that can explain it to Zhou Xian." Li Qing just nodded, he was not interested in these intrigues at all. "So, you should stay away from the imperial master's mansion." When Li Qing heard the person on the chopping board, he suddenly said, "Father, why is this? Ruozhi and I are close friends, and it's not something that you court officials can pry into." Li Linhai saw his youngest son maintain himself so well, and an unnamed flame surged in his heart. "Fool, what kind of close friend are you? Do you know what education that Fu Ronghua received from a young age, who her master was, who she met, and what she did?" Li Qing was scolded in silence. "Look at your unremarkable appearance. Go back to your house and study now. Don't leave the mansion during this time. Also, there's that rundown restaurant that doesn't work properly, eats, drinks, solicits and gambles. What's going on? Shut it down immediately. When can you learn from your elder brother and make me worry less about this old bone?" Upon hearing this, Li Qing immediately exploded with anger and said, "Brother again, you love him so much. When I was a newcomer who caused trouble for you, what absurd things did brother do? You support him. What serious business I do, you don't even look up to me. I think you are biased." Li Linhai didn't expect his youngest son to be so disobedient that he couldn't lift him up in one breath. Fortunately, at this moment, one came and took a life-saving and soothing pill to stabilize him. "Get out, rebellious son, get out of here. Go away, go away. If it weren't for you looking for me, I wouldn't have come to this shabby study even if I were dead." Li Qing ignored Wen's gaze and stormed away. Wen said, Master, Qing'er is still young. Don't get angry and damage your body. It's not like you're used to it, what's it like? Do you still have me in your eyes? He's so lawless. Returning to the room, Li Qing let go of his previous impulse, followed by a sense of regret. His father was getting older, so he shouldn't have targeted him like this. It's just that the father and son always don't deal with each other. So what can we do? Thinking of Ruozhi, his father's words actually woke him up. Although he never doubted the friendship between the two, his father's questioning made him ponder. From the beginning, Ruozhi's situation was different from his. She was just a woman, but the burden was too heavy. Looking at himself, the carefree young master, although his father scolded him, he never forced himself to do anything. This is true. If Ruozhi had lived the life of Li Qing, she might have laughed and woke up from sleep. Perhaps Li Qing lay awake all night in bed and murmured, "Ruozhi, I understand. You asked me that day at the restaurant. Chaolu Hall Mo, you had already administered a powerful medicine to Emperor Ming. When 1,000 troops were deployed, Emperor Ming stood up and placed the person on the bed. Mou. Your Majesty is out of danger. If you add follow-up drugs and acupuncture and moxibustion, you can keep your life safe for another 2 years. Ruozhi nodded and said, Mr. Xian Kumo. 2 years. It should be enough. During this period, Emperor Ming regained his consciousness and said, Ruozhi. I'm here. It was only at this critical moment of life and death that I suddenly realized that those who were by my side were not my useless sons, nor were they the concubines in the harem, nor were they the courtiers of the previous dynasty. It was you, a girl. Cough cough. Your Majesty has just escaped danger, so it's better to cultivate oneself. In the future, Zhi'er will have more time to listen to you. After saying this, Ruozhi twisted the blanket for Emperor Ming, who fell into a coma again. When Lian Lishi arrived, he was already sweating profusely. Seeing that his father had fallen asleep peacefully, his floating heart felt a hint of comfort. Ruozhi handed the other party tea and asked them to rest before discussing the topic. Zhi'er, I really shouldn't have. Father is so sick, and we argued so much last time. If she pinched Lian Lishi's shoulder and said, You are his son, I won't blame you. Lian Lishi nodded lightly, but noticed a hint of sourness from the woman's expression. She turned her head and said, If General Fu is still here, I hope you can live a more relaxed life. If she raised her eyebrows and smiled, she would actually see her emotions. She thought she was hiding her emotions very well. Perhaps, if my father were still here, I would also be a master who doesn't make him worry-free, the woman joked. How could it be? My family's Zhi'er is such a well-behaved director. He can't even show off his love in time. I'm afraid he's here, and I won't even let Zhi'er and I meet. Lian Lishi said. Ruozhi looked at it and pondered a few more times. Oh, why do I feel that your words are strange? It seems like I wish I had lost my father. You've been playing with me, haven't you? The woman's dripping big eyes made Lian Lishi look at her hair. The man then realized the ambiguity in his words and quickly stood up, bowing and apologizing. It was my clumsy mouth that didn't speak, but it made you worry too much. I just wanted to say that Huar is the best woman in the world, the most filial child in the eyes of her parents, with no other intention. Ruozhi looked at Lian Lishi's righteous and dignified expression, which made her feel a bit amused, but she didn't dare to express herself directly. She just buried her face with a handkerchief, and now Lian Lishi misunderstood that the woman was crying sadly because of her negligence. Zhi'er, don't cry. I was wrong. I should have fought, but don't take it to heart. Lian Lishi's hand, suspended in the air, was in a dilemma. I didn't cry, it's none of your business. What I said seemed so delicate. It was the appearance of Lin Qianqiang that brought the two of them back to their senses. Your Highness, little Emperor, it's getting late. You two should go back, afraid of any trouble. Let everyone smell the fishy smell and come over in a frenzy. Ruozhi's eyes changed from a smile to a clear and bright expression. Okay, when someone asks you about it later, just say that your majesty has a headache because of the matter between the fifth prince and me. That's why you didn't go to the morning court. Lin Qiangqiang's face showed surprise and immediately agreed, I understand. Ruozhi and Mr. Mo left first. Lian Lishi originally wanted to ride on the carriage with Ruozhi, but as soon as Ruozhi stepped out of the hall, Lian Lishi was stopped by Lin Qiangqiang and said, Your Highness, Your Majesty is awake. I want to say a few words to you. Lian Lishi then thought about it. He looked deeply at Ruozhi's back and walked back. Mou, who was far away, could not help roast. Your Majesty wants to explain something to the fifth prince alone. Ruozhi quickly shook her head, indicating that she didn't care. The two of them walked out of the palace with the moonlight. Inside the hall, Emperor Ming leaned against the bed with a pale face. When Lian Lishi came in, he first greeted him and then walked to the bed to adjust the angle of the pillow for Emperor Ming. Emperor Ming held Lian Lishi's hand, his eyes filled with pity, or perhaps he could see the shadow of an old friend from Lian Lishi's face. Lian Lishi seems to have become accustomed to the annotations of Emperor Ming. Who would say that she and her mother have a 5-point similarity? Emperor Ming. Has that girl from Ruozhi left? Lian Lishi said indifferently, Well, actually you don't need to act like this. You know she knows the most about propriety. Emperor Ming's eyes were dim and unclear. If she knew the right balance, she shouldn't have been pulling and arguing with my sons, especially you. Lian Lishi frowned and looked at the weak appearance of Emperor Ming. He worked hard to calm his emotions and said, The love between men and women is not artificially controllable. If you can't do it, why bother us young people? Emperor Ming smiled. He had several sons, all of whom were intelligent and outstanding. The eldest was transparent and atmospheric, the second was gentle and sharp, the third played with mountains and rivers, the fourth was good at planning, the sixth was frank and open-minded, and the seventh was elegant in calligraphy and painting. And this fifth Emperor Ming looked at the child of his spouse who had been in love for decades, which was a witness for him and his beloved. He thought he favored this fifth son. End of this chapter.